Good morning. My name is Victor. Welcome to Good Morning Kenya on this 6th day of September 2022, a day that Kenyans are now going back to work after the Supreme Court upheld the election of President-elect Dr. William Ruto, who will now be sworn in next week on Tuesday. A lot has been said, but we must also continue to talk about this because conversation must continue in terms of what we should expect now moving forward, what is in store for him, and even the future of the nation. That is coming up later on in the program. You can talk to us on our various social media platforms and tell us where you're watching the show so that we can keep interactive. My name is Victor Law. Once again, welcome to the program. Jen.
Top of the morning and welcome once again to the program. My name is Jane Wamboy. As always, we appreciate that you choose to start your morning with us right here on Good Morning Kenya, Monday the 6th of September. Now, at least, Victor, as you rightfully put it, people can rest easy. Even yesterday, some kids had to leave school early just as a precautionary measure to ensure that things continue to transition smoothly. But now, after that judgment, I think it is on to the next step. And as per the electoral laws, 7 days after the pronouncement of that particular judgment, President-elect will be sworn in. So next week, Tuesday, is a public holiday.
Yeah.
Doreen.
Public holiday it is. And Dr. Ruto sought to break the curse of the fast by being the first president elected at his first stab. Indeed, he broke it. This is after Kenya became a multi-party state in 1992, where we haven't witnessed that. Good morning. Many thanks for making time. We are here to keep you abreast with what is happening in Kenya and beyond. Speaking of beyond, Angola equally went to the polls on August 24th. And just as we have been treated to court hearings, court proceedings, legal terms here in the country, that is said to be the same case scenario in that particular country, after the leader of opposition equally again went to court to challenge the win of the president-elect. He says that he has had a hand in the electoral commission and the electoral process, and that the leader of the ruling party, MPLF, really didn't win fair and square. So how is it going to pan out? All remains to be a matter of wait and see. I mean, it's really quite an interesting time to just be an African in Africa and see how democracy, the growth, evolution of democracy in the African continent, all in a bid and aid to just see how the jurisprudence of African states is going. Quite an interesting time. Nonetheless, we are still here. A lot in store for you this Tuesday morning, as well as interesting conversations coming your way. Stay put till the end of the show. I'm Doreen Arangi Okello. Good morning, Regina.
I like that you've brought up the issue of what is happening in Angola. And as we say, this is Africa and Africa is our business. As we say in Kenya, when we sneeze, the rest get a cold. You can bet that the decision that was made yesterday unanimously by the 7-bench judge led by Chief Justice Martha Koome there to uphold the election of William Ruto as the country's 5th president is going to also give grounding to countries across the African continent. Well, it is September the 6th and William Ruto the 5th. I'm Regina Manyara. We are going to be putting you into the information bracket in not too long. Do not go away. Good morning once again. You're watching In the Headlines on KBC Channel 1. I'm Regina Manyara and this is Good Morning Kenya. Now, President-elect William Ruto has promised a government that will be guided by the rule of law and devoid of political victimization. While welcoming the decision of the Supreme Court to uphold his win, Ruto said his administration will be open to criticism and will not interfere with the constitutional bodies discharging their mandates. Ruto said his election was a testimony for many and opens up possibilities for all, irrespective of their background, where they come from, or their financial status.
President-elect Dr. William Ruto lauded the judges for what he said was their firmness and fidelity to the rule of law and the sovereign will of the people. He said he has welcomed the verdict with tremendous humility and that the court, in affirming his win, had acted with utmost fidelity to the Constitution.
I salute the judges of the Supreme Court who have performed their duty with utmost fidelity to the Constitution. They listened to all parties, considered all issues, applied the law, and demonstrated their learning, impartiality, and patriotism.
He said his win was a clear testament to many that they can rise to attain their ambitions if they believe in God and with hard work.
You know, the legendary Mamamboga and Boda Boda guys, they are the heroes of our campaign. They have opened doors and gates for their own children in every village, in every neighborhood, knowing very well that their children as well can become leaders.
Ruto saying time for politics had come to an end and the hard work of delivering the many pledges had come.
My administration shall do justice to all, regardless of their social status, religion, ethnicity, gender, whether they voted at all or whom they voted for.
The president-elect promising to reach out to President Uhuru Kenyatta on matters of transition of power, even as he committed to ensure completion of all pending projects.
I haven't talked to him in months. But shortly I will bring a call to him so that we can have a conversation on the process of transition. I take no offense at all that he decided to choose and support somebody else.
The president-elect maintaining that there was no enmity with his political competitors and that they should not live in fear, but has ruled out any possibilities of a handshake, saying a functional government requires a strong opposition to put it in check.
We will have an opposition in Kenya. There will be no handshake like the one we witnessed before. We are only competitors, not enemies. We vied to unite and strengthen Kenya, not to divide and weaken it. I therefore consider all of my competitors to be my worthy compatriots.
Ruto making it clear that in his administration, independent institutions will be allowed to discharge their obligations unhindered, saying never again will such bodies be availed for political operatives.
Wanasiasa wote wako na huru wakuwe na msimamo tofauti ya kisiasa bila ya kujali ya kwamba watashurutishwa, watalazimishwa, watafunguliwa mashtaka yasiyo na maana.
Once you put the right leadership into place, this is a beautiful country with very resourceful and hard-working people. All you need is to create the right environment for the people of Kenya to prevail.
A few hours after his victory was upheld by the Supreme Court, President-elect Dr. William Ruto says that he is ready to work and steer the country's economy forward and that he is going to work with everyone regardless of their political affiliation.
Indeed. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta has pledged to oversee a peaceful transition process, speaking to the nation for the first time after the declaration of Dr. William Ruto as president-elect. President Uhuru asked Kenyans to hold all leaders to account and ensure all constitutional processes are adhered to. He commended Kenyans for holding peaceful election. Here's a full address of the head of state.
Fellow Kenyans, on the 9th of August of 2022, Kenyans participated in an election that ushered in new leaders at all levels of our governance realm. Following a dispute in the presidential election, a petition was filed in our Supreme Court for determination of validity of the results, and the Supreme Court has today pronounced itself on this matter. When I was sworn in as your president, I made a pledge to the country, a pledge to uphold the rule of law and the decisions made by the judiciary on all matters appertaining to our governance. Today, the Supreme Court made a ruling on the presidential dispute, upholding the results announced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission on the 15th of August, 2022. And in keeping to the pledge that I made to uphold the rule of law when I took the oath of office, I commit to executing the orders of this court to the letter. The process of handing over is in progress through the Assumption of Office Committee, which actually has already begun its work as of August 10th, 2022. And indeed, it is my intention to oversee a smooth transition to the next administration, and all the necessary orders to facilitate this process have already been issued. And because democracy is a work in progress, I urge the country to respect the institutions that midwife our new leaders. And in doing so, I also urge citizens to constantly put them under scrutiny, for this is the civic duty of every single Kenyan. In particular, this civic duty requires every citizen to constantly put the truth presented by our constitutional institutions to test. And they must test them for coherence, but also for correspondence. They must constantly scrutinize the coherence of the truth given by these institutions, and to ask themselves whether the truth has been coherent from one election to another. Has there been a consistent pattern that is acceptable to our democratic ethos? We must ask ourselves, is it about numbers or is it about process? Which of these two is it? And can our institutions rule one way in one election and another way in another election without scrutiny? I do invite you, Kenyans, to keep vigil and indeed to hold all institutions to account. The second thing we must place under scrutiny is whether the truth given by institutions has correspondence. That is, do the truths given by our institutions correspond with what is observable by the citizen? true beliefs and true judgments must correspond to the actual state of affairs. But do our constitutional institutions meet this threshold? While we must appreciate these institutions, we must also hold them to account at every juncture. And their truth has to be consistent and coherent. This is the only way we will build our democracy. I want to take this opportunity to thank every single Kenyan for holding a peaceful election. And for this, I want to thank God, and I want to thank our political parties, but I also want to thank every single individual Kenyan for bringing us thus far. I want to wish well all who have won as they guide our country into the future. And I thank you all for the opportunity to serve, and I say, may God bless you all, and may God bless this great Republic of Kenya. Asante.
That is the nation's address by President Uhuru Kenyatta there, talking about the just concluded presidential petition. His official address since the country went to the August 9th polls, asking Kenyans to continue scrutinizing, independent government bodies as they execute their mandate within their capacities there. And I'm sure this is a question that is going to be put to task by my colleague Victor as he looks at matters politics. That particular statement where the president says that can an election does it change? Does it vary with time? And the question is, are elections the same? Or are the same issues over and over? Have we witnessed the same issues come up every time we go to a general election? And how different was the August 2022 presidential poll? That's a conversation that is going to be put into question as we discuss matters of politics now that we have a new president-elect, and the swearing-in ceremony is set for 13th of September. That is Tuesday next week. Now I'll just have a recap of what happened, or rather what transpired at the Supreme Court, where it unanimously upheld the election of William Ruto as president-elect in the just concluded August 9th presidential election. Now, the 7-judge bench dismissed the consolidated presidential election petition by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua. In a summarized ruling read by Chief Justice Martha Koome, the judges affirmed that the president-elect William Ruto garnered 50+1% of the vote as stipulated by the Constitution for a presidential election win, and was duly elected in accordance with the Constitution.
As a consequence, we declare the election of the first respondent as president-elect to be varied under Article 143 of the Constitution.
Blow by blow, all the 7 judges of the Supreme Court knocked out entire petition by Azimio la Umoja One Kenya presidential candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua. First to be dismissed were allegations that the technology deployed by IEBC failed to meet the standards of integrity, verifiability, transparency to guarantee credibility of results. The Supreme Court judges finding no evidence to support the allegations.
No credible evidence meeting the requisite standard of proof of access to the system by unauthorized persons was adduced by the petitioners. The scrutiny report prepared by the registrar of this court did not reveal any security breaches of the IEBC's RTS.
On whether there was interference of Forms 34A from the polling station to the IEBC portal, the Apex Court ruled that the petitioners failed to provide credible evidence to justify allegations that 11,000 Forms 34A were staged and modified by unknown individuals.
In our considered view, there was no evidence of a man in the middle server configured to the IEBC's VPN network, and no evidence was produced to show that the chairperson of IEBC and staff were part of the arranged conspiracy to stage the transmission process.
In determining whether there were differences between Form 34A on the portal, Form 34A at the tallying center, and Form 34A with the agents at the polling station, the judges were not convinced by affidavit sworn by John Githongo, equally dismissing it.
Those averments contain no more than incredible and hearsay evidence. No admissible evidence was presented to prove the allegation that Forms 34A were fraudulently altered by a group situated in Karen under the direction of persons named in the affidavit.
Lawyer Julie Soweto's presentation at the Supreme Court on claims of foreign footprints on Forms 34A uploaded in the IEBC portal bearing the name of one Jose Camargo, however, did not convince the judges.
This also turned out to be no more than hot air, and we were taken on a wild goose chase that yielded nothing of probative value.
The fourth issue of determination was whether the postponement of gubernatorial elections in Kakamega and Mombasa counties, parliamentary elections in Kitui Rural, Kacheliba, Rongai and Pokot South constituencies, and electoral wards resulted in voter suppression to the detriment of the petitioners. Although the judges acknowledged voter suppression as a political strategy to influence the outcome of an election, they found no merit on the claim.
From the explanation tendered, we are satisfied that the postponement was occasioned by a genuine mistake, which in our view could have been avoided had the members and staff of IEBC been more diligent when they went to inspect the templates in Athens, Greece.
The court also found no unexplainable discrepancies between votes cast for presidential candidates and other elective positions to justify nullification of the election.
Not a single document has been presented by the first petitioner to prove systemic ballot stuffing. A figure of 33,208 votes relied on in this claim is based on unproven hypotheses.
However, despite agreeing with the petitioners that IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati cannot allocate to himself the power to verify and tally the results of a presidential election to the exclusion of other members of the commission, the Apex Court said the dissenting four commissioners who poked holes on the presidential results actively participated in the verification and tallying exercise at the Bomas of Kenya.
In the absence of any evidence of violation of the Constitution and our electoral laws, how can we upset an election in which the people are participating without hindrance, as they made their political choices pursuant to Article 38 of the Constitution? To do this would be tantamount to subjecting the sovereign will of the Kenyan people to the quorum antics of IEBC. This we cannot do.
The aggregation of the percentages garnered by four presidential candidates and the final tabulation announced by IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati was also approved by the court.
Consequently, we find that the petitioners did not provide a watertight case to warrant the setting aside of the results of the presidential election on the basis of not having met the threshold provided under Article 138(4)(a) of the Constitution.
Although a number of irregularities and illegalities were witnessed in the presidential elections conducted by IEBC, the judges, however, said it had no effect on the final result of the presidential elections. The Apex Court promising to provide a detailed judgment in 21 days.
On that note, to take a quick breather, we'll be right back with more.
always gone bad.
Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king clout chaser.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb, anaweza kuwa na followers, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
Yes. How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories.
They do not make... Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Abiambosi.
No.
Bahati hata kuwa na machozi. Willy Paul ndio alikuwa anatoa machozi.
For your beat these boys with stones. Let's all be logic. Yesu ashukangi chini analeta pesa.
Musicians are missing the point.
Do we sip water?
You are watching pop culture with Adhiambo with a Y.
He's lived a tragic life. All these years, he's always been on his own.
Let's pretend this never happened. But, even though I fixed her eyes, she can't handle brightness.
Master, I'm finally back to see you. Zeno, all these years without my blood, why hasn't his body even changed a bit?
I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to have a happy life.
I don't even have to bother.
Life cannot always be too serious.
Yeah, man, what's up here?
Allah?
We've got to take some time off and laugh, laugh, laugh and laugh. And we tickle you down with lots of laughter.
That's why I'm saying I'm who is who.
Huh? With satire like no other.
Tell him to bring it on.
Dakachapa.
Good morning. If you're tuning in, this is In the Headlines, and I am Regina Manyara. Now, Azimio la Umoja One Kenya party leader Raila Odinga says even though he respects the Supreme Court's ruling that dismissed his petition against President-elect William Ruto's election, he disagrees with the Apex Court's decision. In a statement, Raila took issue with the dismissal of all the 9 grounds of the petition as well as the language the Apex Court used in the ruling. Yeshoke Washira has the details.
The Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party leader Raila Odinga has disagreed with the unanimous decision by Supreme Court judges upholding President-elect William Ruto's election. Raila, however, says he respects the opinion of the court because he believes in the rule of law and the Constitution. In a statement, Raila says, "Our lawyers proffered irrefutable evidence and the facts were on our side. Unfortunately, the judges saw it otherwise. We find it incredible that the judges found against us all 9 grounds. An occasion resulted to unduly exaggerated language to refute our claims."
No admissible evidence was presented to prove the allegation that Forms 34A were fraudulently altered by a group situated in Karen under the direction of persons named in the affidavit and video clip attached to it. As a matter of fact, these 2 affidavits amount to double hearsay and incapable of being proved at each of the rears. We turn to Form 34A for Gasharaigo Primary School, which was sensationally presented by Madam Judy Soweto, advocate, to show that one Jose Kamango accessed the RTS and interfered with the result contained therein. This also turned out to be no more than hot air, and we were taken on a wild goose chase that yielded nothing of probative value.
The Azimio la Umoja party leader further indicates the judgment will by no means end his movement, but inspire the party to redouble its efforts to transform the country into a prosperous democracy. Raila thanked his supporters and promised to communicate in the near future on what he termed as plans to continue the struggle for transparency, accountability and democracy.
On the same breath, lawyers representing the Azimio la Umoja One presidential candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Martha Karua have termed the Supreme Court's unanimous presidential election petition verdict as ideological for not addressing pertinent questions raised. This as their counterparts from Kenya Kwanza hailed the judgment, saying the will of the people had been heard. Serafina Robi reports.
The unanimous decision by the 7-judge bench of the Apex Court has elicited mixed reactions from parties involved in the presidential election petition. Led by Senior Counsel James Orengo, lawyers representing Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, Raila Odinga and Martha Karua have faulted the unanimous judgment for failing to address pertinent questions raised, such as opening the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission service for a full audit.
We accept the decision, but we do not agree with it. The best way for this court to have made a decision was with the servers to be fully opened and all the election materials be placed before the court. But we wanted a proper audit.
The lawyers further claim the issue of foreigners infiltrating the KEMS gate was not addressed, questioning the Supreme Court's registrar's report.
The involvement of the Venezuelans for a full month before, half a month before the elections and up to the 16th of August was not explained. Gentleman Camargo's name was not supposed to be on Form 34A. If at all he was involved in this election, he was involved on the technology side. So to find it anywhere near a Form 34A raised more questions than answers.
Other petitioners such as Busia Senator-elect Okiya Omtata also expressed reservations with the judgment.
Nimeona kwamba koti imeshatoa uamuzi na hii ni mambo ya siasa, kwa hivyo siasa imeisha, watu warudi kazi.
Both camps would also have divergent views on the mentioned forged evidence on the sworn affidavits in court.
No, I mean forgeries, when the DCI, the Director of Criminal Investigations, what do we put before the court? A lot of it was from an agency of government. I didn't see them talking about similar incidents.
Forgery is a criminal offense, and the organs that deal with criminal justice system in our country are at liberty to see if somebody deliberately forged documents and presented them to the Supreme Court. It is time action is taken.
On the other hand, the Kenya Kwanza Alliance legal team, led by lawyers Kato Kigen and senior counsel Kioko Kilukumi, was also full of praise for the highest court in the land.
Imefanya haki, imeamua vile imeamua, na vile tunaona ni ya kwamba it has been faithful to the constitution, na tunafikiria sasa tuendelee na IEBC pia iangalie kwa kindani vile Supreme Court imesema na wa adjust election processes ndio tufurahie wote.
The implications are that Honorable William Samoei Ruto will be sworn in as president next Tuesday. That is 7 days from today. Yes, and that sends the country to finality and stability after the electoral cycle.
Kenya Kwanza government will not be just for the Kenya Kwanza supporters. It is a government for all the Kenyans. So do not feel left out as a Kenyan. Our doors are open. You belong here. We pray that there will be peace from now going forward.
Following the unanimous decision by the 7-judge bench to dismiss the consolidated 7 petitions, the country now looks forward to the 13th of September for the swearing in of the president-elect William Ruto.
Now that reaction there just puts life into agreeing to disagree. Now, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission Chair Wafula Chebukati has hailed the Supreme Court for vindicating the electoral body and ruling it conducted free, fair and transparent, credible general elections. Chebukati at the same time clarified that the 4 dissenting commissioners are still members of the electoral body despite their differences.
The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission had been listed as a respondent in the presidential petition at the Supreme Court, where it was accused of contravening the Constitution. However, Monday's ruling by the highest court in the land is a sigh of relief to the Wafula Chebukati-led commission.
This process started immediately after 2017 general election, and the commission tested its systems and processes in over the 40 by-elections in the last 5 years. Therefore, the Supreme Court judgment today is a testimony that the Commission conducted a free, fair, transparent and credible general election that met the democratic aspirations of the people of Kenya. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is finally vindicated.
On the fate of the 4 dissenting commissioners, Juliana Cherera, Justice Nyangaya, Irene Masit and Francis Wanderi,
as a commission, we follow the law, and it's up to them and their conscience what they want to do going forward. But as a commission, we follow the law, and we have not chased away anyone.
At the same time, Chebukati called for investigations into the cases of attacks on some IEBC staff.
In the course of discharging our constitutional duty, the commission and its staff endured harassment, intimidation, abduction, arrests, and some lost their lives. In this general election, the abuse of IEBC staff reached an unimaginable scale. Apart from the 2 deaths, the commission and staff suffered other atrocities, including, but not limited to, assault and injury of the chairman, Commissioners Professor Abdi Gulier and Boya Molu, and the commission secretary and Chief Executive Officer Mr. Marijan Hussein at the National Tallying Center during the declaration of results. Working for IEBC should not be a death sentence. The Commission reiterates that election is a process and not an event. This process started immediately after 2017 general election, and the Commission tested its systems and processes in over the 40 by-elections in the last 5 years. Therefore, the Supreme Court judgment today is a testimony that the Commission conducted a free, fair, transparent and credible general election that met the democratic aspirations of the people of Kenya. The Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is finally vindicated. We look forward to the full judgment of the Supreme Court, as well as feedback from our stakeholders during the post-election evaluation exercises which will inform areas of improvement in the electoral process. Finally, the Commission wishes to thank immensely its legal team in not only defending it, but also ensuring that the sovereign will of the people of Kenya is protected.
The IEBC chair said they will engage stakeholders in a post-election evaluation exercise which will inform areas of improvement, even as it awaits the full version of the judgment of the Supreme Court.
A seemingly more relaxed Wafula Chebukati there, addressing the nation after the Supreme Court made its judgment there. So far, no criminal charges have been preferred on the IEBC commissioners or even the IEBC chair as is, and a confirmation there is that the dissenting 4 commissioners are still part of the electoral body. Now, let's look at how the country reacted to the Supreme Court judgment there. And there were celebrations after the Supreme Court upheld President-elect William Ruto's election. Now, armed with wheelbarrows, vuvuzelas and placards, Kenya Kwanza supporters took the streets to celebrate the ruling. Here is a compiled report by our very own Zainab Said that it looks at the reactions across all counties.
Following the Supreme Court's 7-bench judge unanimous decision to uphold President-elect William Ruto's win, supporters in Rift Valley celebrated the decision and had kind words for the Apex Court.
Furaha kwa ile uamuzi ile tumepata kutoka kwa mahakama yetu ya upeo, our Supreme Court, kwa sababu wameamua unanimously 7 out of 7.
Tunasema asante sana, tunaomba tuendelee kuwa na amani vile tumeona leo kumekuwa na amani karibu nchi yote, watu wameweza kukubali ile matokeo ambayo imeweza kutokea siku ya leo.
And wished well the Kenya Kwanza team.
Tumefurahi siku ya leo kama watu wa Baringo ya kwamba deputy president amekuwa president.
Similar celebratory scenes were witnessed in central Kenya after the ruling was announced. They called for a peaceful transition.
Grateful today kwa sababu ya huyo ushindi ambao umepeanwa leo na Supreme Court, na sasa obiretu sasa ni kuweka amani kote nchini.
Sana angaria wana youth tumeathiriwa sana.
At the coast, residents welcomed the decision, expressing optimism in the president-elect.
Idea kama itawezekana aturudishie poti kutoka kule ije huku, at least zile kazi na zile offices ziwe zinaweza kuja huku, at least Mombasa yetu iweze kufanya nini, iweze kuamka.
Asitusahau zile ahadi ambazo walitupea wakati wa kampeni, bado tunasikumbuka. Ushindi ni wa Kenya nzima, sio wa mtu mmoja, sio wa kabila hii wala kabila nyingine. Ushindi ni wa makabila yote 45 ya Kenya.
In northeastern Kenya, residents termed the ruling as a pace setter to the independence of the judiciary.
Judges wamelete heshima.
Waomba wa Kenya turudi kazini, tuchape kazi. Rais wetu ambaye amepewa nafasi hii na koti, na yeye aanze kazi yake, na sisi kama wananchi tukamunge mkono, hata wale waliopigia mlengo ule na wale walipigia mwingine, tushikane pamoja tuweze kupeleka nchi yetu mbele.
Similar celebrations were experienced in Western Kenya.
Jamii ya Waluya inaingia kwenye serikali. So Waluya wako ndani ya serikali na sisi tunataka kazi ianze mara moja.
Kwa amani, na sasa ndio nchi yetu ya Kenya tumeanza upya, mwamko mpya na William Samoei Ruto.
Now, reporter Timothy Kipnusu has been pitching camp in Eldoret and Sugoi in particular, where we expect there's going to be more celebration following that particular ruling that has upheld the election of William Ruto as president-elect. After the swearing-in ceremony that is slated for next Tuesday, September the 13th, William Ruto is going to be Kenya's 5th president. So we're expecting to be broadcasting, or rather bringing you live what is going to be happening, or rather what is currently underway in Sugoi, Uasin Gishu County with Timothy Kipnusu in the course of this particular broadcast. Now let's continue looking at how Kenyans took to the news there, and the social media was not left behind, where for some, it was an outright congratulatory messages, but for others, it was downright, or rather heartaches, as Tessa Mutai tracked the sentiments of Kenyans, social media warriors, and highlights the ups and downs of the social media streets following that particular decision.
A remarkable day it has been, and surely this wouldn't pass by the keyboard warriors without having quite a lot to say. The dawn of a new era, from grass to grace, a perfect example that even the smallest can be the mightiest of all. Today being the 5th day of the month, a date that determined the outcome of the 5th president, many netizens trooped to social media sphere. As the Supreme Court ruling drew nearer, possibly for all Kenyans, noon was no longer time for high noon tea, but rather a time for deep deliberations. Meme Lord wrote, "For once, Kenyans are looking forward to a Monday the 5th, to determine the 5th. Hilarious, huh? For a nation that never looks forward to Monday.
Jesus is Lord."
The social media realm has also seen a generous amount of congratulatory messages from across the political divide. Kipchumba Murkomen tweeted, "Thank you, God. I have no words. Congratulations to our 5th president, Dr. William Samoei Ruto. I have confirmed it's not a dream. It is God. Yes, it is God at William Samoei Ruto." Lord Abraham Mutai to the 5th president of Kenya, Dr. William Samoei Ruto and his team, embrace us all. Embrace those who were hard on you. Embrace those who believed in Azimio la Umoja. Embrace the Republic as a whole. We are all Kenyans. Defeated, we rise and we will support you. George Natembea, congratulations President-elect His Excellency William Samoei Ruto for your victory to be upheld. All the best as you serve Kenyans. Pongezi. Let's serve Kenya now. Professor John Lonyangapo tweeted, "Congratulations His Excellency Dr. William Samoei Ruto on your confirmation as the President-elect of the Republic of Kenya." However, in each contest, there is a victor and a loser. The Azimio team and its supporters may have varied remarks on the Supreme Court ruling, some feeling that perhaps the ruling was skewed. Karam tweeted, "Even from a neutral point of view, it does appear as an absolutely absurd occurrence that the Supreme Court decision really did away with all 9 issues presented by the petitioners. Surely it wasn't all quote-unquote hot air and may actually be ideological as Justice Orengo implied." But for Esther Kazungu, pray for your friends who are both Arsenal and Azimio supporters. It goes without saying, but I will say it anyway, that in the midst of all celebrations and disagreements, netizens have proactively preached a word of peace. Derek, whatever the rulings, we need a peaceful Kenya. Love heart emojis. Ndiragu tweeted, "This is Kenya and Kenya is our business."
Daima mimi Kenya, mwananchi mzalendo.
Well, it is indeed Kenya, and Kenya is our business. And as a Kenyan, I'm quite proud to be part of this prosperous nation in that we managed to give naysayers quite the surprise that they hadn't anticipated by maintaining peace during the August 9 polls and even after the presidential petition went to the courts, and yesterday after the judges pronounced themselves in regard to that particular petition. We are still calm. At the end of the day, you and I are Kenyans. You're my brother, you're my sister, and let's keep it that way. At the end of the day, inflation issues, climate issues right here within the country are going to affect us equally across board. So let's remember that. Now, the 13th Parliament will hold its first sitting on Thursday, that is the 8th of September, at Parliament buildings following a Gazette notice issued by President Uhuru Kenyatta as stipulated within the law. Now, the sitting, which comes 30 days after the general election, will see the National Assembly and the Senate members elect their respective House speakers before their swearing in. The clerk of the Senate, Jeremiah Nyegeye, told those interested in the Speaker and Deputy Speaker posts should pick their nomination forms and return them by Wednesday 7th at 2:30 p.m.
4 days to the end of the 30-day period within which Parliament should hold its first sitting after the general election as per the Constitution, President Uhuru Kenyatta has issued a Gazette notice announcing 8th of September 2022 as the official date for the first sitting. From 9 a.m. Thursday, all 349 members of the National Assembly and 47 members of the Senate will be expected to be at the chambers. The first business will be election of House Speaker and the Deputy, then the swearing in of the members. The Senate has availed nomination forms for interested individuals.
Will require that completed nomination papers together with the curriculum vitae of each candidate and relevant supporting documents which we have advised should be returned to the office of the clerk of the Senate not later than 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, 7th September 2022.
Clerk of the Senate Jeremiah Nyegeye says 2 individuals have declared interest in the Speaker's position. He, however, steered off issues concerning senators-elect who are eyeing the Speaker's seat in the National Assembly.
A senator desirous of vying for the position of Speaker of the National Assembly. For this time, we are staying with matters relating to the Senate. So the business that we are about here is about election of Speaker to the Senate and matters relating to the Senate.
The Senate will conduct a pre-swearing-in session at Parliament on Wednesday from 9 a.m. Control of House leadership in the bicameral Parliament remains central agenda for both Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Coalition and Kenya Kwanza. At the Senate, where Kenya Kwanza has 24 senators against Azimio's 23, the ruling coalition has given a nod to former Kilifi Governor Amason Kingi, while former Muranga Women Representative Sabina Chege is seeking Azimio's backing. At the National Assembly, former Speaker Kenneth Marende will be banking on Azimio's 167-member majority against Bungoma Senator-elect Moses Wetangula of Kenya Kwanza that has 159 members. However, according to Article 106 of the Constitution, a person vying for Speaker for either house ought not to be a member of that house. It is only the Deputy Speaker who is chosen from among elected members.
Now, as it stands, Kenya Kwanza enjoys the advantage in as far as numbers are concerned. So we'll be keeping tabs on exactly who is going to be picking the papers and who the parties are going to be fronting for these particular seats. Remember, we're also going to be keenly watching who is eyeing the Speaker of the National Assembly too. We take a quick breather on that note.
How do you find your grandmother? How much do you love her? Come on, you have to trust me.
What's going on, Madam Warden? Please tell me, am I being set free now?
I want to talk to her and hear from her what happened on the day my father died.
But who really are you, Mother? The unfaithful woman who left me to run off with another man like what my dad had said?
Don't start jumping to conclusions.
And why not? Huh?
No, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back.
Umeliona gazeti la leo?
This is still disturbing.
Hivi ndo wenzako washapatana basi.
Huyo alivita iko wapi?
Ngoja nifunguke.
Kwani yuanza yeye kupenda? Atakuachaje siku zote hizo aje akurudie sasa? Yaani hapo hushiki mita.
Nimekupigania sana Leo. Tumepitia mambo mengi sana mimi na wewe. Babangu mimi nitamwambia nini?
Na usijaribu kunidanganya kwa sababu faili niliziona.
This is the way we're going to invade your sitting rooms once every week. Allah.
And this is what we mean. The originals. Lipua, Veve Productions, Orchestra Kiam, and so much more.
Mirindimo ya ngoma za rumba kutoka pembe zote za Afrika, zilizopepea, zinazopepewa kwa kiasi ambacho hutang'atuka ng'o from your sitting room.
Wow, Buziana, Scholar Miel, Betty Beast, Fifi Mofude, among others.
Bridge over Congo with Simeon Mfumu Kimbangu
and Winnie Marie-Jose on KBC Channel 1.
Zambia Sambela Kate, Ako Sambela Nani.
God does not worship. To whom will he worship?
Honorable Kajos Mafu.
Good morning. Thank you for still keeping us company. You're watching In the Headlines and I am Regina Manyara. This is KBC Channel 1. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has assured contractors undertaking the competency-based curriculum infrastructure projects of full payment once construction of the classroom is complete. According to Professor Magoha, all classrooms meant to host junior secondary school learners will be complete by Friday.
On Monday, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha commissioned competency-based curriculum classrooms at Dagoretti High School and Ruthimitu Mixed Secondary School.
For the occasion, yes.
Professor Magoha saying everything is in place to ready for the pioneer class of junior secondary school.
Now the balance which we have, which is about 6 to 7%, are classrooms which are equivalent to about 300, and they are not starting from the ground. The majority of them are at roofing level. About 90% of them are at roofing level, with a few at walling level.
The Education Cabinet Secretary also assured contractors engaged in the project of payment for work done.
We have a little hiccup here in Nairobi and in the coastal region. Most of the Rift Valley is now doing well. We have about 7 counties there that have completed at 100%. We have issues with the Elgeyo Marakwet and Kericho, and we are focused there.
Professor Magoha assured stakeholders there will be no changes in the school calendar going forward, and it will be completely normalized by 2023.
Well, we'll be keenly waiting to see in regard to, cabinet appointments there. Conversation has been rife on social media that the said Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Magoha there has been overworking, and whether or not we're going to deliver the classrooms by Friday, KBC Channel 1 is going to be undertaking a spot check on the same. Now, while all eyes were trained at the Milimani Law Courts, where the Supreme Court was executing its mandate on the presidential petition, also other arms of the judiciary, or rather other departments, were also put to task to execute on their mandate. Here's a roundup of what was happening from the corridors of justice.
Monday mid-morning, Mohammed Kajembe, son of the late Ramadan Kajembe, appeared before a Mombasa court to answer assault charges. Mohammed was charged with assaulting his stepsister, Dhureia Salim Idi, who is the wife of Jomvu MP-elect Badi Twalib. According to the court documents, he was arraigned before Chief Magistrate Martha Mutuko, where he denied the 3 counts. According to the court documents, Dhureia was aboard a private motor vehicle when the accused pelted stones at her vehicle. Court papers indicate that the incident happened when Dhureia was returning home after she had voted at Jomvu Primary School in Jomvu constituency during the August 9th, 2022 general elections. The accused was charged with causing damage to the left rear passenger windscreen and the rear windscreen of the vehicle. In addition, Mohammed was charged with willfully damaging the left side mirror of another vehicle. The accused, who spent the weekend at the Changamwe police station, was charged on Monday and released on a cash bill of 50,000 shillings. The matter will be mentioned on 19th of this month.
Now that sets the ball rolling to motorsports, where Nepal took the one-day international series against Kenya 3-0 after a 6-wicket win in the final match played yesterday at the Nairobi Gymkhana grounds. Host Kenya won the toss and elected to bat, putting 255 runs for the loss of 9 wickets in 50 overs. Collins Obuya scored 84 runs with Lucas Okuluoch adding a quick-fire 59 from 27 runs. Adil Ansari took 3 wickets, while Sompal Kami took 2 wickets. In a reply, Nepal got to 248 runs off the loss of 4 wickets in 47.1 overs to secure the 6 wickets win and the series. Asif Sheikh, Arjun Saud and Basir Ahmed got 56, 58 and 52 runs respectively. Viraj Patel took 2 wickets for Kenya. The ODI series win comes on the back of last week's 3-2 win in the T20 International Series. From cricket to boxing, the Africa Boxing Union middleweight champion Rayton Okwiri is set to take part in a non-title middleweight bout in October in Pennsylvania. Okwiri has been training at the Kaloleni Social Hall with the Kenyan Prison Service team in preparation for the fight, which will take 10 rounds as he awaits his American opponent. The sergeant was forced to retire on the 7th round during the IBF International ESPN fight held in South Africa in June this year after he was injured. He now is fully recovered and he's rearing to get back to the ring for his remaining bouts this year.
Umekuwa fair kwangu manake mwaka huu nitasema at least umekuwa fair kwangu manake so far nimepata fight moja ambayo ilikuwa ni fight kubwa sana, ilikuwa ni IBF International ambayo nilipigana huko South Africa. Ingawaje nili lose round ya 7 manake nilipata jeraha.
Upande wa prisons tuko na vijana wazuri. Kama saizi tunajiandaa kwa hii league itakuwa 26th, 7th and 8th Kitale.
Now from the sports arena, just to remind you that our website is fully updated on stories that have been making headlines in the last 24 hours, www.kbc.co.ke. Now this ushers in a new era, so to speak, or a new moment here where we get to sample what the scribes across the various dailies have picked for us. Front page, Mr. President, being September the 6th, of 2022, a historic moment on the day that victory was affirmed by the highest court in the land. President-elect William Ruto set out to heal a divided nation, reaching out to his chief opponent Raila Odinga and retiring President Kenyatta, who last night promised a smooth transition. Now from a chicken seller to the hallowed precincts of State House. It did not come easy, and beyond the rhetoric, however, the hard part begins. In the next 100 days, this is something that we're going to be keenly waiting. What areas is the president-elect going to be focusing on within his first 100 days in office? He's expected to be sworn in on Tuesday. That is exactly 7 days after the judges made that ruling. So that is That, and also there's been a lot of reaction across the divide, leaders, international and local, and one woman who happens to be the mom. He said that this is according to William Ruto's mother, Sarah Samoei. She thanked Kenyans for electing her son as the country's 5th president, and said that Ruto persevered from a young age and still has the same spirit. I have never been to State House, and his win may enable me to visit him there soon. A reaction of a proud mom there. That's just by the sneak peek of the front page of the Daily that I have with me here this morning. Victor.
On the front page of the Star newspaper, there we have it. President Ruto, my promise. President Ruto, my promise. Actually, there is no headline. That was the front page. Let's get into the second page. And still on first page, rather, on the front page, Raila concedes defeat, but he disagrees with the ruling. That's exactly what's on the front page of the Star. Let me just take you through that story. Odinga concedes but disagrees with judgment. Azimio leader Raila Odinga on Monday conceded defeat by his political nemesis William Ruto, promising strong opposition to check the incoming government. It was his 5th unsuccessful run for the presidency by the man considered by many the father of democracy in Kenya. And as that was happening, expect no handshake, Ruto tells Azimio's Raila, says that criminal justice system won't be used against rivals. Ruto instead told Raila to take his quote-unquote rightful place in the opposition, arguing that the only way to have his government kept in check is through a strong opposition. He said that unlike the current situation, the government has failed to live up to its pledges and remain accountable because the opposition was suppressed. Both the two gentlemen are talking the same language, opposition. Piki Ponki lawyer welcomes ruling after hysterical submissions. That is Willis Otieno. Otieno, however, maintains that the system was hacked. And his submissions before the 7 Supreme Court judges last week placed him at the center of a comic performance as he aggressively used humor to ridicule the arguments presented by the electoral agency to defend the election of President-elect William Ruto. Yes, Kenyans were entertained from Piki Ponki to a plumber. And yes, Chebukati says that he did a good job. He said that, actually on Monday, he said that the verdict vindicated the commission from allegations leveled against it by some leaders who opposed Ruto's election. He also said that despite the intimidation and assault on the commission's staff, including himself, the court's decision is now a strong evidence that they performed their duties as required. That is according to Chebukati. How Ruto romped home on first run. That is an interesting read. You can take a look at that story. It's fleshed out there for you. Why Raila lost State House for 5th time. Why Raila lost State House for 5th time is also a story that is quite interesting. It's in details. Raila got 800... let me just... No, not really. The story says that some reasons protracted Azimio's negotiations, weakened grip on traditional basis, and over-reliance on President Uhuru Kenyatta's contributed to Raila's defeat by President-elect William Ruto. And what judges said on Raila's petition, there were 8 cases there that we'll also be looking later on with Wakili Eliud Ngugi in studio. It's sweet victory for Ruto as Supreme Court upholds win. Exactly. It's quite human to be at this particular point, to be happy. It's good. 7 judges unanimously declared election of Ruto as president-elect to be valid. Now, finally, MPs to elect speakers Thursday after Uhuru notice. The announcement sets the stage for a showdown between Azimio leader Raila Odinga and President-elect William Ruto's troops in the election of the next speakers in the two houses. In a Gazette notice, the president announced that the first sittings following the August 9th general election would be held at Parliament buildings in Nairobi. So that will happen on Thursday. That is where, after swearing in of MPs and the senators, then they will proceed to elect their speakers and deputy speakers respectively. Jen.
All right, let's run through the Daily Nation. Again, the main read still concerning the Supreme Court's final judgment in regards to Deputy President William Ruto's win in the just concluded general elections as now the president-elect. A story that has been covered from page 2 through to page 14. But in brief, they just cover the different aspects of the past week's entire proceedings. But here they go on to say that in a biting summary judgment, the Supreme Court dismisses Raila Odinga's petition and clears the way for William Ruto's swearing in as a president in the next 7 days. They go on to give details as to how this particular journey started. Page 2 and 3 covers a piece that has been titled "The Road to Freedom," of the story of a village boy who rose from Sugoi to the ultimate seat of privilege, wealth and power in the country. The next pages, page 4 and 5, cover the story of Rigathi Gachagua, now living the dream. He was criticized as quote-unquote unrefined, and now he is a heartbeat away from the top seat, that is the presidency in the country. Page 8 covers the question, the story of Raila Odinga, so near yet so far. For Raila Odinga, this was the best bet yet. But when it comes to his political career, the question remains, what now? On page 9 through to this story has also been covered on the back page of this particular daily. They title it "Uhuru Sulks." His choice defeated in the polls. The president vilifies the judges as he walks away with a bruised nose. They go on to also look at the whole question of swearing in of President Ruto, president-elect for that matter. Ruto is set to be sworn in as president and commander-in-chief of the defense forces on Tuesday next week as per the electoral laws. And finally, Chebukati Sai, chairman of the elections agency, says the court ruling has vindicated him and his team in regards to this particular general election. But one story that has been received with much appreciation by so many people on the social media platform is in regards to what His Excellency President Uhuru Kenyatta did say in regards to the transition of power in the country, and also President-elect's response to that. And one part that has been lifted from that particular speech by President-elect Dr. William Ruto, where he said, "My administration will recognize in full the now established tradition of honoring our leaders who have served this nation and shall not in any way, manner interfere with the privileges and other entitlements in retirement. They are revered elders of our nation who deserve respect at all times." This particular segment of this particular speech has been appreciated by so many people on social media, terming it as the kind of unity that our country needs, especially during this transition time of what, bearing in mind what we have witnessed in line with this whole politicking season that we have been in. But that is basically the stories that have been captured here on the front page. Of course, we will be giving you more details as we proceed on with this particular segment. But first, a look at the People's Daily. Doreen.
All clear for Ruto as Supreme Court confirms victory. That is what you're waking up to this Tuesday morning, where the 7 Apex Court judge bench rejected the entire evidence that was provided by opponent Raila Odinga together with the other 5 petitions therein. And also, just in line with that, in a statement, Raila Odinga said he had taken note of the decision of the Supreme Court and respects it, although he disagreed with the decision. He is also yet to give a way forward in respect to what next, particularly for, the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition party. But obviously, just going by that particular confirmation by the Apex Court yesterday, this now sets the stage for the swearing-in ceremony of the president-elect. And going by what he said yesterday, or rather what was captured in the presser that he had yesterday, is that he says that this is not just a win for him, but largely a win for every Kenyan. And also, this was more to give hope to thousands of Kenyans, particularly from poor backgrounds, who aspire to a better life. Much has been said already about, Dr. Ruto and his humble background just rising to the position of power. Also, Nyanza still remains peaceful, calm after Supreme Court verdict. You can remember that the U.S. Embassy had issued a directive, particularly, for its citizens not to, or sort of to keep off from the area that is Nyanza, and particularly Kisumu, just going by what the verdict would have come out. But ideally, looks like, this entire area, they have really maintained peace and calm. And a spot check also established the residents remain peaceful and calm as the Supreme Court delivered that verdict. That was before, during, and even after the verdict yesterday. And as I said, clearly this now sets the stage rolling for the swearing-in of the president-elect. And also, the committee had already been preparing for this transition of power, headed by the head of public service, that is Joseph Kinyua. Equally, Dr. Ruto had also appointed those from his camp who would also be part of this particular transition process, or this committee led by Justin Muturi, and also the Uasin Gishu Women representative Gladys Bos-Shole is equally part of that team that will spearhead, the swearing-in process or ceremony that will be happening on the 13th of September. And yes, much as IEBC was vindicated by, the Apex Court yesterday, right now journalists file new petition against Chebukati and Marjan. And just going by what exactly they're saying, and this particular fresh petition that has been lodged at the High Court, they're seeking the removal of the chairperson, that is Chebukati, the CEO Marjan Hussein Marjan, as well as 2 commissioners over allegation of gross misconduct in the conduct of the 2022 election, citing issues of not really following through with the constitution. And remember that this was also part of the 9 issues that the judges were pronouncing themselves on. This was issue number 6, whether or not they were in line with Article 138 of the Constitution, which clearly kept coming up a lot of times. But I mean, just look like, going by what the judges pronounced themselves yesterday, is that indeed that was followed, so much as there was a caveat in respect to the regulation 87 of the Elections Act, whereby Chebukati gazetted himself, but clearly there were no huge anomalies that would have otherwise made them to overturn the election in respect to that particular issue. But we wait to see how that would pan out at the High Court following, that filing of that particular new petition by the journalists there. And lastly, 13th Parliament to hold first sitting on Thursday. This is obviously after the President Kenyatta gazetted September 8th, which is actually just this Thursday, for the first sitting of Parliament. This is for both houses, National Assembly, as well as the Senate. And as it stands, the first order of business will obviously be the election of both speakers for both houses. And far much what we know so far is that Kenya Kwanza has floated Wetangula, which was actually, he was promised, if at all, this particular, faction took power or even not. Azimio has floated Kalonzo Musyoka. Initially, they had put forth Kenneth Marende, and this was in anticipation of perhaps the ruling going their way, but that didn't quite happen. And as of yesterday evening, from what we know, is that Kalonzo Musyoka picked the nomination papers, and so he's going to be battling it out with Moses Wetangula. And for the Deputy Speaker on the Kenya Kwanza side, they have put forth Gladys Bos-Shole, who is the Uasin Gishu Women representative. And just going by the Constitution, and particularly Article 106, then this means that Wetangula needs to resign from that seat where he was elected as Bungoma Senator, because you cannot be a member of Parliament and still expect to be elected as Speaker of either of the House houses. For the Senate, Kenya Kwanza has put forth Amason Kingi and Marende for the Azimio side. Clearly now you understand why all along it has really been a battle of numbers, because after that particular verdict, now focus is shifted to Parliament. Regina.
Talking about the shift to Parliament there and the issue of numbers, there was a question there that was put across to some of the analysts we were having yesterday in regard to the President-elect's speech after the Supreme Court ruling saying that he wants to be checked. He wants his government to be checked by the opposition. And the question put forth was, well, does the opposition have the requisite numbers to actually, put him in check in as far as legislation is concerned, given that according to the shifts that we have seen is that Kenya Kwanza has managed to get at least 15 more either independents or parties affiliated to Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition move to Kenya Kwanza, and they're going to be officially there given the timelines and the party agreements there from November. So that is another aspect. There's been talk that the Kenya Kwanza government is almost going to be a single party kind of leadership given the numbers. But hey, we are waiting to see. President-elect William Ruto is yet to be sworn into office, and we're yet to find out what key areas he's going to tackle in his first 100 days. The question has been what did not work for the presidential petition? And this is a question that has been put has been fleshed out in this particular paper that I have, and the question is blunders that made Raila and Karua to lose. This is a whole 2-page just analyzing what blunders the Azimio team of 42 lawyers made in this particular petition. Now, according to this article, IEBC and President-elect William Ruto had a clear rebuttal strategy to buttress any allegations. Raila and Karua had anchored their case on discrepancies in transmitted results and infiltration of the Electoral Commission system. And a comment that has also been highlighted here and picked from the Supreme Court judge's judgment there is a question, or rather a response, so to speak, that was read out by Chief Justice Martha Koome. Are we to nullify an election on the basis of a last-minute boardroom rupture between the chairperson of the commission and some of its members? In the absence of any evidence of violation of the Constitution or electoral laws, how can we upset an election in which the people have participated without hindrance as they make their political choices pursuant to Article 38 of the Constitution? To do so would be tantamount to subjecting the sovereign will of the Kenyan people to the quorum antiques of the IEBC, and this we cannot do. The question of IEBC going forward, and as we are waiting for the 21 days to lapse to have a written detailed judgment from the 7 judges who made their unanimous decision yesterday, some of the recommendations that were read out is that there needs to be reform within the electoral body. And given that this is his last term, Wafula Chebukati as chair, he said that while making the declaration of William Ruto as president on the 15th there, he said he's not going to be overseeing any other election there. That puts a question that, are we going to see these reforms? Is the IEBC going to be one of the issues that after the swearing in and, being swearing in of President-elect as well as members of the National Assembly? Is this an issue that they're going to, put to rest? Reforms within the IEBC. That's a question that needs to be answered and answered too. Now, talking as now we focus on this transition, we are looking at September 13th there, and it's a whole process. And this was actually put in place after what the country went through during the contested 2007 general election that saw President Mwai Kibaki, now deceased, sworn in at dusk. So this is not going to happen. Why? Because we have made strides to ensure that it takes a process. Some of the keys needs to note is that the transition committee will pick a venue for the swearing in of Ruto, President-elect, and this must be within Nairobi City and in a place that allows a public ceremony. Then the committee will gazette the date and place of the swearing-in ceremony and declare the date as a public holiday. Given the numbers and the timelines, we're looking at September 13th on Tuesday. Now, the committee will also, or the Inspector General of the National Police Service will ensure provision of adequate security during the swearing-in ceremony. And during the swearing-in ceremony, Ruto will take oath which will be administered to him by the Chief Registrar before the Chief Justice or Deputy Chief Justice. Now, the oath has to happen between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Then Ruto will sign a certificate of inauguration in the presence of the Chief Justice or the Deputy Chief Justice. Now, the outgoing President Kenyatta will then hand over to Ruto a sword and the Constitution, which are the instruments of power and authority. In this time, the outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta made his address, Kenyans had taken to social media, memes had come out, some even saying that we do not need the sword, we can do it with a knife and panga. Well, hey, as far as the law is concerned, the sword, the ceremonial sword, and the constitutions are required as they are the instruments of power and authority. Then after that, we expect to see Deputy President-elect Mr. Gachagua will take oath of the execution of the functions of the Deputy President, and the new President who is going to take to the podium and give his inauguration speech to the nation. Just a rundown on what to expect come Tuesday the 13th, which is to be gazetted as a public holiday for that. There's also a whole 2-3 pages of Raila's history in politics, and the header here goes, Raila in a familiar territory as poll petition is thrown out once again. The president we never had. Quite a piece here. There are pictures that date back to all the way to 1996 during the Ford Kenya elections in April 14th of 1996, as well as photos here of NAC party members at Uhuru Park in December 2003. Quite a piece there documenting Raila's quest for the presidency there. The question is, what next for Raila Odinga? I'm sure that is going to be, we're going to try and answer that in the next phase of this particular broadcast as Victor takes on our guest this morning. So to you, Victor.
All right, before I continue, Arsenal is still number 1, Manchester United number 5. Let's continue with what?
No.
Moving on.
No. What did you just say?
Chebukati doesn't have power to verify.
You're still number 1, but you took us rushing from us. The unbeaten was actually beaten. Do you have that conversation? Do you want us to have that conversation?
Chebukati doesn't have power to tally, verify. Okay, we'll come back to that later on, Regina. According to court results, judges ruled that chairman cannot arrogate to himself the power excluding commissioners. That is something that was also argued by the judges, and that's according to them. Indeed, Article 138(10) of the Constitution, although the power to declare the result of a presidential election after verification and tallying is vested in the chairperson, he does not only as a delegate of the commission, he does so only, just to verify, he does so only as a delegate of the commission. That's according to the Chief Justice Martha Koome yesterday. Okay, you've talked about Ruto to be sworn in next week on Tuesday, not later than 2 p.m. Some good news in the business sector, and I think, Regina, this must be some good news for you. NSE investors gain 20 billion shillings as Apex Court upholds Ruto's win. Analysts project further market stability now that the country is over with elections, and I think this will translate to stability in terms of economy. It said that this saw investors' paper wealth grow by 20 billion shillings, with the market capitalization hitting 2.1 trillion shillings compared to 2.1 trillion shillings on Friday. Now, the market, which opened with minimal activities in the early morning, as investors waited for the apex court's ruling, saw the main index, the Nairobi All-Share Index, gain 5.93% compared to Friday's trading. And I think, Regina, it's still hopeful, and it's looking so good for the country, so to speak.
Actually, if you look at how the Nairobi bourse behaved before the election, actually not even the presidential election, we saw some investors, especially those who had done short-term, sell waiting to see, and that time actually was very good for if you were looking to invest.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, that jump in the bourse has earned those who had invested that in that period of uncertainty quite the mark, so to speak, or rather quite the profit. So this is a good turn for the country. There's a lot of wait and see that not even just the Nairobi bourse, but even the banks. You try access credit 1 month to August. The answer was like, wacha tuone. Let's wait and see.
Yeah.
But now, I think now that is out of the way, Kenya is well on its way to recovery. Remember, we still have to do with the ripple effect of COVID-19 effects of 2020, and now the issue, the drought situation, the climate situation is also something that we need to get hands on. Actually, a report by the UN indicates that neighboring Somalia will reach famine by later this year. So it's happening. It's not just an issue within Somalia. Also, we have some counties that are stirring a drought. So it's a good turn.
It's a good time.
That we're done. Now that we're done with elections. Yes.
And still on business, Coast Hotels happy with half-year occupancy and industry recovers. They said that there was an occupancy rate of above 70% for the first half of 2022, an indication of the sector's gradual recovery from the 2-year slump. And I think Kenyans are embracing change slowly. We adapted to the corona pandemic situation, but hey, we are coming up. And finally, U.S. Embassy to expedite issuance of U.S. visas to Kenyan's envoy. There was a bit of an outcry of a delay to process U.S. visas. And now, U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Mike Whitman, has pledged to fast-track U.S. visa applications for Kenyans to help clear a backlog of pending visa application at the embassy. And I think these are good news. This announcement came by the U.S. envoy just coming days as a huge reprieve following a spate of public outcry over delays in the visa approval for Kenyans at the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi. So I think for people who've been waiting for that vital document, you have your word from the U.S. Ambassador. I think that's over for me. I'm told that tumalize.
Tumalize?
Yes.
Just as we close, last week was quite the legal class. Which was your favorite word of the week? Your legal jargon word of the week? I will start. Jurisprudence.
Jurisdiction.
Jurisdiction.
Jurisprudence.
Jurisdiction.
I heard Amishi. Piki piki ponki.
That's not a legal term.
It's not.
It was used by our lawyers.
Piki piki ponki. Plumbers.
Regina, what was your favorite? What stood out?
Please don't ask me of a term. I was very keen when
what was your
that
legal jargon takeaway?
Listen to her.
When Piki Piki Ponki was happening, I was just concentrating on the sweat. I was just like,
okay.
I was like, that man is sweating. He's sweating a good one. But
yako ilikuwa ipi?
Nimesema mara mingi, nimesema jurisdiction, nimesema plumber.
Jurisprudence.
My learned friend here.
Kwanza, the guest that we were having yesterday here on KBC, lawyer Wamboi.
Yes.
The jurisprudence. Use that word in an argument.
Someone said that in this season, everyone was a returning officer at some point. Everyone became a political analyst, and everyone became an advocate.
Able use that word in an argument.
Notice that all of the lawyers and advocates, they were calling my friend here,
my learned friend,
my friend here, my learned senior here.
I can't speak before my senior speaks.
Yes, there is some level of respect amongst themselves, the legal fraternity.
But it was quite the.
We also had a lesson in math.
We will miss that.
We also had a lesson in math.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we had a lesson in math that
People
was
used
during
the calculators
Okiya
on their
Mtata presentation, and also lawyer Somane of IEBC went to the pains of explaining what was recorded on Form 34A all the way. Good Lord. It reminded me of that math lesson where you were doing statistics and you're like, huh?
Crash course.
But we're talking about the legal fraternity. What about journalists? We did a good job, all right? We were pushed to do our best across all
Kenya is
journalists.
watching.
Exactly.
Kenya is watching.
We did our best. See, tujipige makofi.
Oh. Someone said that this is the moment where, as a journalist, your skill is put to test.
Oh, yes. Push to the corner.
One thing I'm happy about, and I'm not going to mince my words, and I know Ben Kamuti, who was in charge of the Bomas National Talent Center live broadcast there, well, we are happy that we are not going back to the National Talent Center until after 5 years.
We know. Bomas.
It was not
14-degree temperatures.
a joke.
And you
glad.
had good company, monkeys.
And the cold.
Yes.
All right, nonetheless, we move. All right, so that brings us to a close of this segment, but we still have so much more lined up for you. Do stay with us. We are still using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya on Twitter, individually at Ray Manyara, at Victor Olo, at Doreen Arange, and at Jane Wamboy. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
There. Good boys gone bad. Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king clout chaser.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb, anaweza kuwa na followers, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
Yes. How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories. They do not make...
Slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
Oh, mashallah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Adhiambo C.
No. Bahati hata kuwa na machozi. Willy Paul ndio alikuwa anatoa machozi.
For your beat these boys with stones. Let's all be logic. Yesu ashukangi chini analeta pesa.
Musicians are missing the point.
Do we sip water?
You are watching pop culture with Adhiambo with a Y.
He's lived a tragic life. All these years, he's always been on his own.
Let's pretend this never happened. But, even though I fixed her eyes, she can't handle brightness.
Master, I'm finally back to see you. So, you know, all these years without my blood, why hasn't his body even changed a bit?
I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to have a happy life.
What did you just say?
Sio tamthilia tu.
And why you're saying that
Ni tamthilia tosha. Alinishika hivi. What? Sio burudani tu, ni burudani tosha. It is the day that the Lord has made. Na sinema bomba.
Enda
kabisa kama uelewi kitu inafaa uelewe.
Na mada za kusisimua. KBC Channel 1, shirika la utangazaji Kenya.
Yani ina maana nchi ama mji ikiwa na amani, unakuta hata nchi zingine zinawadhamini, zinawafadhili sana, zinawaaminia.
Muislamu wa kisawasawa ni yule ambaye anadumisha amani, anaepukana na maneno ambayo yanaweza kupelekea kuvurugika kwa amani, na vitendo vyake pia huwa vinahusika na kuhifadhi amani.
Ukiniangalia mimi ni mtu kununua second hand.
You look second hand yourself right now.
Mimi nakaondieka. Niangalie hivi, nakaondieka.
Not with those, maybe with the tummy. No, but
Tosha.
Huyu hata tujuani. Do you know me?
Are baba.
Do you know each other?
Iko flying lines hapo.
When husband ama ni houseboy? House kwa husband. Nini wewe inakusumbua?
Wako ha?
Yes.
Jambo.
Fine, thank you. Oh my God. No. Let me talk the truth and accept the devil, please. Please.
Babyface.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like yes.
Babyface.
Yeah.
Ulionaje kazi yangu, skills zangu za uzaji zikoaje?
You are excellent.
Wewe mzee. Hatuko hapa mchezo.
Ni kweli hata nani.
Sasa ukisha si uongee vile unaongea.
I can see you come bearing gifts.
It's only one.
Of course I know it's not mine.
Kama uneki orumojo ujipage. Economy ni baya wewe.
We need to persuade her to sell our shares. I mean everything. Good luck with that.
And to think Mama Paul would have instilled some manners in you by now.
Unlike you, Mama Paul has a beautiful soul.
Utarudiki kwenye umetoka unasikia?
Aunt Cassie.
Yes. When was the last time you spoke to Dad?
I'm here and he's not.
Welcome back, and it's now time for us to get into a bit of politics and just understand what happened yesterday and what you should be expecting in the coming days. Welcome to the program. This is Eye on Politics. It's now over. It's now official. We have got President in waiting now, President-elect. That is Dr. William Ruto, to be sworn in next week on Tuesday as per the Constitution. And today we just want to take a look. Let's just go back a bit and see what happened as Kenyans waited for that Supreme Court ruling which happened yesterday. And with me in studio I have got Senior Counsel Eliud Ngugi. I said Senior Counsel and he laughed. Why Senior Counsel? Is there a sense of hierarchy? There's a lawyer, there's an advocate, counsel and Senior Counsel. What's the difference?
The difference is that, thank you for having me first. The difference is that senior counsel is someone who has done something exemplary in the legal profession. And so they have either become, been the best teachers of the law, or they have been the best litigators, or they have gone to court and actually stood out and represented people, or they have actually done something notable even in government. So for example, the former Vice President, Kalonzo Musyoka, is a senior counsel, having been a Vice President of this country. And so that's senior counsel. But then we have what we say...
Counsel is a general term.
Counsel is a general term, which is derived from the term counselor. Because most of what lawyers do is they give they give advice.
Yes.
So they become counsels. So that's the meaning for counsels.
Someone has been asking me what's the difference between an advocate of the High Court and a lawyer.
An advocate of the High Court is someone who has beyond going to study law.
Yes.
In the university. They have spent 1 year at the Kenya School of Law, and after 1 year they have also gone through something we call pupillage, or gone under a master and studied also the practical ways of practicing law. So after that, then they request, which we say they petition the Chief Justice to be admitted to the bar. And so they wear the wig and you swear, you take an oath and say that you will uphold at all times the rule of law.
Yes.
And so that's an advocate. But then a lawyer is someone who has studied law, so they have a degree in law.
What am I?
You are a journalist.
All right, I'm a senior journalist. All right. Yes. Thank you so much. I think it's good to verify that, because we've been in that week of legal jargons and legal matters, which is also good for the country. We learn on a daily basis. Okay, so a lot happened yesterday. Let's just go back to what happened in the Supreme Court, and all the 7-judge bench made a unanimous decision. Was this quite common, that all the judges had the same thought and they said, this is our unanimous decision?
No, it's not, because in most of the hearings, and even previously, we've had judges who have dissented or who have disagreed with one another. So you have one dissenting and one making the rest making unanimous decision. And so for this to have happened yesterday, where it was an unanimous judgment that they all agreed on the issues, I believe then that goes into the case in itself, that probably the case was or rather the petitioners did not present enough evidence. And from that, then that lack of presentation of a substantive case that required some judges to agree with them, then that meant that then they all disagreed with the petitioners who had come requesting that the case be, or rather the election be annulled.
Yes. But is it common? Is it usual?
It's not common. In most cases, you find at least one person disagreeing with the rest of the judges. And so that basically means that they agree that maybe, like in this previous petition that it was in the Supreme Court, they were saying that probably the election was not properly done.
Yes.
Or rather that the system, the KIMS kit and other technology that we use for election was not as specified by the law. So we should have found some agreeing and saying, actually, the technology that we have taken in our Kenyan election process is no longer matching up with the law. It's not helping us have transparent and verifiable elections. Yeah.
And I think this one also reminds me, I think it was DCJ Mwilu who said that now moving forward, advocates should look at the weight of the cases they present to the court. I don't know whether that was based on the ruling, because that statement came after the ruling. So in their remarks, that it was now going back to the advocates and the lawyers now to look at the weight of the cases they present to before the courts. This perhaps looks to be a standard that has been set at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, yes, but also I think also what I heard the Deputy Chief Justice saying is that she admires how the lawyers believed in their client's case, which basically meant, in my interpretation, that the Deputy Chief Justice and the other members of that bench of judges have been following through the information, have been present have been following the news, and following up every information that has been relayed out there. And so they knew, and they were keen, and they knew what was happening on the ground. And then the lawyers came in and they believed in what their clients wanted, and they tried convincing them otherwise, away from what they had been seeing, the issues which were present on the ground. And so that's what basically she was saying, that I see you're very passionate in believing your client's cause, because that's what they did. They believed in their client's cause. And that's what we are required as professionals to do. If you come to me, I need to believe in your cause, and I need to fight for your justice. Yes.
In terms of standard, we see all the 9 petitions which were condensed or suppressed or consolidated, for that matter, all dismissed. In terms of standard that has been set by the Supreme Court, what would you say, even for the future litigations that might come up, from the subsequent elections?
It basically means that the Supreme Court is trying to, what they are doing is, they have, one, set up the standard very high. They have raised the bar on how we should be able to challenge some election issues.
Yes.
That you need to produce proper evidence. You need to actually take a proper evidence, not just from maybe a few polling stations, but probably it needs to be very convincing. Beyond reasonable doubt is the term we use. That's the standard they want.
But someone would argue that time was not enough for that to happen.
Well, the time may not have been.
You'd imagine you want to get an evidence from Lagdera or from Moyale or some corner in Nyalgunga, in that deep in Homa Bay County. I don't know. Time is of the essence here?
Time is of the essence, but I think that's why, again, there was a whole battery of lawyers and researchers in different teams to help with, for example, I think there was something about IEBC having 56 lawyers. And this number of lawyers basically meant that they had to go through their materials. And so if you have a huge number of assistants, probably you're able to actually bring this evidence in court. And so if you get 200 of them, you'll be able to actually raise a very serious case, and you'll be able to actually follow through the timeline given, the 14 days given for you to actually present your case. But also, the judgment may have, the judgment may have seemed like it actually agreed, or rather threw out the case for the petitioners.
Yes.
But what we may also need to look into is the fact that this judgment clarified some issues. So, for example, the issue to do with the commission in itself, whereby the case was whether the chairperson has a right to tally, or is the sole person who should tally the final,
the final results of the presidential results.
Presidential results. That issue was able to be clarified, and they said, although we do not agree that he does not have the power to be the one to verify and tally the presidential election results, each commissioner also is meant to participate in the whole process. And so, in such a manner, the Supreme Court yesterday actually clarified on that issue, which has been very controversial, and members of the public were wondering who is who. And so, although they agreed that it's not the chairman who might have even done the tallying in itself at Bomas, then they were able to uphold and say, we do not see anything wrong, because the other 4 commissioners did not present a watertight case on the disputes in the commission. And also the chairman did not speak about the dispute in itself.
And we talk about chairman, he actually said that he's been vindicated. He's been vindicated, and by and large, IEBC.
Yes.
In 2017, he was a victim. He was indicted again this time around. But he must be a happy man going on retirement, having all these accusations leveled against him off his table.
Well, he is, and I believe there is also state security that comes with that job. Because, number one, if if maybe the elections are overturned, or rather nullified, what that would have meant that would have been that the chairperson did not do his work. But the fact that they upheld that declaration that he made as a chairperson, which is the authority that was actually bestowed upon him to just declare the results, then that means that he is a happy man, because what he did was not an illegality, as was prayed by the petitioners in their petition.
Yes.
They had said that he committed an offense by declaring someone who may not have met the 50+1 standard that is set out in the elections law. Yes.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we still have got so much more to talk about, including we want to go through one by one all the 9 points, just to understand how the judges came to conclusion and dismiss all the 9 petitions in yesterday's ruling. So let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Umeliona gazeti la leo?
This is still disturbing.
Hivi ndo wenzako washapatana basi.
Huyo anajuta iko wapi?
Ngoja lifunguke. Kwani yuanza yeye kupenda? Atakuachaje siku zote hizo aje akurudie sasa? Yaani hapo hushiki mita.
Nimekupigania sana Leo. Tumepitia mambo mengi sana mimi na wewe. Babangu mimi nitamwambia nini?
Na usijaribu kunidanganya. Usijaribu kunidanganya kwa sababu faili niliziona.
How do you find your grandmother? How much do you love her? Come on, you have to trust me.
What's going on, Madam Warden? Please tell me, am I being set free now?
I want to talk to her and hear from her what happened on the day my father died.
But who really are you, Mother? The unfaithful woman who left me to run off with another man like what my dad had said?
Don't start jumping to conclusions.
And why not? Huh?
No, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back.
Life cannot always be too serious.
Yeah, man, what's up, yeah?
Allah? We've got to take some time off and laugh and laugh. And we tickle you down with lots of laughter.
That's why I'm saying I'm who is who.
Huh? With satire like no other.
Tell him to bring it on.
Dakachapa.
This is the way we're going to invade your sitting rooms once every week. Allah.
And this is what we mean. The originals. Lipua Lipua. Veve Productions. Orchestra Kiam. And so much more.
Mirindimo ya ngoma za rumba kutoka pembe zote za Afrika. Zilizopepea, zinazopepea. Kwa kiasi ambacho hutang'atuka ng'o from your sitting room.
Wow. Bozi Boziana, Scholar Miel, Betty Beast, Fifi Mofude, among others.
Bridge over Congo with Simeon Mfumu Kimbangu.
And Winnie Marie-Jose on KBC Channel 1.
Nzambia Sambela Kate, Ako Sambela Nani.
God does not worship. To whom will he worship?
Honorable Kajos Mafu.
Welcome back. It's People and Politics. Earlier on I said Iron Politics. People and Politics being on a Tuesday. Wakili Ngugi is still with me in studio. So Wakili, a lot happened, and let's just go back to what happened in the courts. What really stood out for you yesterday, you know, the whole process until the last beat of that judgment?
What stood out for me was how the judges made sure that everything, all the presentations were done on time or within the given time. And they also ensured that that each party was given the actual time they were supposed to present or to make their submissions. But also the fact that the judgment yesterday was delivered. They had said that all parties should be in court by noon.
Yes.
And by, I believe, by 2 p.m., the judgment had already been delivered, which we know rarely happens in other instances where you find that the judgment is delivered later in the day.
Yeah.
So that was something that stood out. The presentation also by the senior counsels was also very something admirable, especially for young lawyers to actually learn, because they presented in a very in a manner that showed that they had done the research in a persuasive way, and also they added other factors of literature into it, the poetry into it, and so and analogies, biblical references, and so they were able to paint the different pictures and to be able to be very convincing. And so that stood out for me, and especially former AG Professor Given Muigai's opening statement.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm quite interested in understanding how the whole political landscape will be formed moving forward, because from the judgment, all the 7 petitions, it means that the president-elect now has a clean slate to start afresh his government. Of course, the petitioner went to court. He's been vindicated. But then the legal background and even that heavy cloud of going to court and what have you, he really talked about the judicial independence. How do you think now all these other independent bodies now will start to transact their business devoid of any interference from any other quarter?
The example was already set yesterday by the judiciary. I believe they set out an example of the independence. You could hear the deputy CJ mention after, at the end of the judgment, mention that they were sorry not to have picked some phone calls from throughout the weekend because they were busy. But they are sorry and they apologize for that. And I think she was making reference to maybe some influence that may have happened, or some people who are trying to reach them and maybe try and find out how the verdict will be. Yeah. And so just by that, I believe the rest of the commissions also, and from what the current, or rather the president-elect said, that now these commissions and everybody should not be afraid of doing their work. Yeah. It's a very strong statement, and I believe the reason why we have independent bodies in this country is to make sure that there's an issue to do with watching one another, making sure that we keep each other accountable. And so if each commission and each institution does that, what that will mean is that at the end of the day, institutions will be accountable, institutions will perform their mandate as per the Constitution, and moving forward then, no one is going to be afraid of actually doing their work. We're going to be sure that if I perform my task, and if I do not perform my task, especially if I perform my task, let's say a commission like the EACC, if they perform their task, nobody is going to be afraid of the aftermath, or there will be no intimidation, etc.
We had several, words from the judges watertight cases should be presented before court, hot air, wild goose chase, and etc., etc. How heavy should a case be before it's presented before a court of law? In this case, the Supreme Court.
Any case should be able to meet the standards set out.
Yes.
By the law. We have an Evidence Act that prescribes how you should go about collecting your evidence. We have a civil procedure which goes about talking about how you should, for example, swear an affidavit.
Yeah.
And we had some lawyers being actually mentioned or being warned for actually committing what we say perjury, because they ended up swearing affidavits on behalf of their client, which is not allowed in law. And so any case should be able to follow those, the evidence procedure collection. And so if you are going to challenge any issue, if you have even beyond elections petitions, even in civil and criminal cases, there is a procedure set out there for collection. And for you to be able to win a case, then you need to have a proper evidence. You need to have gone through your evidence, but also there is a standard set for the presentation of evidence.
Yes.
And in elections petitions, that standard is above the balance of probability, but not beyond reasonable doubt. And so if you understand that standard that has already been set, then you should be able to actually look for evidence that is above the standard of proof, which is basically you need to get evidence that can convince the court that actually whatever claim that you're making is actually true and it actually happened. And from that happening of that event, then it may have affected the results. And that's what the election standard is, that they are actually trying to ask you to actually prove that maybe whatever you are claiming, for example, in this previous petition, that they were claiming that there was interception with the transmission of the results, then the examples that maybe should have been given should have been more than the two that were maybe made in court by my senior Julie Soweto. They should have been able to pick several stations, not just those two, in Mount Elgon and in, I believe, Moranga. They should have been able to pick maybe 7 or 10. Yes.
I'm looking at a situation where in the near future we'll have Kenya's democracy and we'll be having elections after every 5 years. Of course, the bar has been set by the Supreme Court. The judges are looking at tangible evidence, something that can convince them. But I'm also looking at a situation where lawyers will also have to go back to the drawing board and convince the judges in terms of the collection of evidence they have. I'm wondering what would happen if an advocate or a lawyer would want to stand for his client in the next election. Based on what we saw yesterday, all of the evidence, all the petitions were quashed, were dismissed. Do you think now lawyers will be ready to stand for their clients in the next election?
Lawyers will be...
In case there's a petition, not next election, that would be preemptive.
Lawyers should be able to actually represent their clients because it's an obligation, it's a duty for one to be able to represent a client. But what comes out of what maybe we need to, and maybe I'm turning a bit political, is that maybe we need to be honest with our clients. We need to tell our clients that either you have a strong case or you have a weak case. We need to actually have such conversations before proceeding on.
Yes.
Not every, and I think that's what came out yesterday, not every election should actually be challenged at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Not every case is worth taking to the Supreme Court. So we need to get to that place, and I think we're getting there, whereby we will be able to say no, the election was actually a bit fair. We have improved in the way we transmitted our results. There was transparency. We need to get to that place where we are able to do that. And so from the happenings of yesterday, then the lawyers and even the clients I believe, are now able to know when to go to court and when to actually sit back and accept the results.
Yeah. It's now over, and the Assumption of Office Committee is now at work. Swearing in is next week on Tuesday. In your own, let's get political a bit. What do you think is now is in place for the deputy president, who is now president-elect? The moment he'll take oath of office, what do you think is ahead of him in his plate?
I think what's on his plate once he assumes office, I believe on Wednesday morning, when he shows up at work, but he's already in office because he's already receiving security briefs every morning.
Right.
I believe the first thing is to actually set up his cabinet, because he cannot be a one-man show. And so the next thing that he's going to do is to actually come up with a cabinet, because the other cabinet has to go home, and he has his people who probably he believes will be able to help him deliver on his mandate. And from there, then he needs to ensure that the promises that they made together with his deputy president, the promises they made above the bottom up, Mama Mboga and Boda Boda Rider, fertilizer for the farmers, all those things that they said are fulfilled.
Yes.
Lowering the cost of living is something that is very urgent, and people are waiting to see what he's about to do to lower the price, especially of unga, from the 200 shillings to something affordable. So I believe those are some of the things that he needs to do. Probably by Friday next week, he needs to do something that will be able to restore some hope.
Yes.
But even beyond that, I had a very interesting moment listening to some international news yesterday, where they were recapping about the Kenyan election, and it sounded very good to be a Kenyan. I was very proud to be a Kenyan at that moment, because the other African countries were being interviewed, and they were speaking very highly of our democracy as a country. And I believe the international countries are also watching.
Yeah.
And if they are watching and they saw how we conducted ourselves, we were peaceful, we did not demonstrate, we have accepted the results, and we have already gone back to work. What that means is basically that the international community is ready to bring their goodies here in this country. So I expect investors to come in. I can see that the stock market has actually...
Yeah, it showed up yesterday. It's performing pretty well.
It has improved. And so even beyond the local engagement and the local economy, whereby the president-elect will be in charge from next week, I believe then there will be international investors who will be reaching out to us, ready to offer us business, ready to bring money into this country for us to actually create these employment opportunities. So it's a good thing.
It's a good thing. He's coming into office, and we are hitting around 12 trillion. This must be something. Should it worry him?
It should worry him, but again, we need not forget that confession by the outgoing president, where he said that we lose 2 billion shillings every day.
Yeah.
So, and this 2 billion shillings is lost through corruption. And so if the incoming president is able to block the leakages that are coming with this loss of money, then I believe that within a very short time, we should be able to clear up our debt as a country. From that, we should be able to clear that if they go ahead and actually work on for example, the farmers, and make sure that we create a market for the export market. Then the farmers are going to export, we are going to have more money, we'll be able to pay more tax, and we are going to pay back our loan.
I would imagine the expectation from the common mwananchi, because, you know, even Azimio, when they were going about, you know, campaigns, they had the manifesto, they had the agenda set for the country, and Dr. William Ruto is now the president-elect. He must be able to deliver as per the pledges he made and the expectation from the to the Mwananchi. Let me just get your point on this. Pledging is one thing and actualization is another. What do you think is going, or what do you think it will take him to start actualizing the manifestos, the pledges, the promises one by one within a span of 5 years?
I think what it will take him is basically being able to, one, the team he puts in place really will determine whether he's able to deliver on his mandate, because he said that the Big Four was one of his projects. For example, if he gets a proper minister for who will be in charge of that, and they're able to oversee that, then that pledge will actually be seen through.
Yeah.
If he is able to make sure that also he engages the international community, he's able to speak to other presidents out there and organizations, international organizations, then that would mean that he's able to deliver on most of his pledge. But also we know him as one, he does not drink, and he's an early riser as a president. He has been an early riser as a deputy president. And so for him, what we expect to see is for him to be always out there early in the morning in his office and getting his briefs and able to actually push the people around him. And so if you are elected to be maybe in Kenya Kwanza and he's your leader, we expect him to actually lead by example as a president. And from that, we will be able to see a lot of changes in the country. Yeah.
So you imagine you have a president who is up by 3:30 and you wake up in the morning, you find him in his office and you appear for a meeting at 9. You would imagine how, you'd be embarrassed as a minister.
Yes.
Let me get it this way. How would you describe the kind of leadership that you'd want to see moving forward?
I think the kind of leadership we would like to see as a country moving forward is a kind of leadership where, one, they respect the independency of the different institutions. And so,
which even President Kenyatta said yesterday.
Yes.
Yes.
So, but we need to see it happen in actualized, whereby if there is a court order, for example, issued by the judiciary, stopping maybe an appointment of ministers or CASs, then we expect that the government of the day is going to respect that independence. You remember there was a list of 6 judges that was actually presented, or not appointed, but among the 40s that were presented to the outgoing president. We expect to see that probably that this time round, as President Ruto assumes office next week, he's able to actually appoint the 6 remaining judges, that they are able to proceed to do their work. We expect to see a leadership that is accountable, that is able to come back and say, we were able to collect X amount of money from our taxes, and this is what we have done. We have delivered on this, and this is within the range. There has been no corruption. We expect to see actually people who engage in corruption deals being put to jail, whereby if there's a corruption report that is out there, the Kenya would like to see is a Kenya whereby those guys are arraigned in court. They are brought to court, and there's a watertight case from the DCI and DPP. They actually collect enough evidence, and so at the end of it all, we get some of these corrupt members put in prison. So I expect that's the kind of Kenya I would like to see going forward.
Let's talk briefly about Raila Odinga. It was his 5th stab at the top seat, and he didn't clinch it. What next for Honorable Raila Odinga?
Raila Odinga, former Prime Minister, is a magnanimous leader. He is a statesman. And going forward, I believe, and actually a conversation I was having with a friend of mine, I would expect that he will attend the inauguration. He will be able to go back and maybe even address the media, because we only saw
he's not spoken
a media report being sent out there. But we expect that he will show up, address the media together with his wife, together with his running mate, and other members of his team, and they're able to say that they respect the decision of the Supreme Court, and also he would like to thank his running mate and the rest of the members of his team, and going forward that he's able to actually move to this position that he deserves as a statesman, that he's able to continue addressing the goodwill, preaching peace in this country. Even beyond the Kenyan border, he's able to go to Africa, some of the African countries, and preach peace. And so his work is not yet done as a statesman. But he's able to also continue pushing for transparency and for accountability from President Ruto's leadership. But he will continue pushing for that democracy, whereby he's going to make them answer to some of their dealings. So he keeps the Ruto's government into check, and expect him to actually even raise an opposition leader who is able to actually keep pushing the government to account for everything. So I expect him to be around, not to actually go home and retire and go quiet.
What if he retires? Let me just speaking what you say. I'm done with this. Kenyans can now push the rest. I've done my bit.
If he decides to retire, well and good. But we intend
I was waiting for that part,
we intend to see some of his close friends reporting and speaking on his behalf. So it's not yet done. Even if he goes home, he goes quiet, we expect to see that some of his close allies, like Junet Mohammed or Atwoli, and the likes of Tuju, and these other people close to him, that they'll be able to continue speaking and actually saying that this is not what Raila Odinga would have wanted. So that's what we expect. Yes.
There's a situation where you've correctly put it that you don't expect Honorable Raila Odinga to retire and leave the political scene yet. The aspect of having 6 million voters behind him, and President-elect William Ruto has 7 million people, you'd imagine that he's still a force to reckon with?
He is still a force to reckon with. He still he has a following. We cannot ignore that. He has a huge following. We are all Kenyans, and I believe that even as President-elect comes into power, it does not mean that he's going to forget the 7 or 6 million people who did not vote for him. We expect that he will continue being a leader who is a Kenyan leader. So some of the things and the promises that were in the Azimio's manifesto, that President-elect is able to actually look into them, offer. He's also not expected to actually leave out some regions of this country, but he's able to actually visit Bondo, visit Siaya, visit Mombasa, and become a president for everybody. So it's a force to reckon with, and that's why I'm also saying that Honorable Raila Odinga still has some work to do. He still has to keep this government to account.
We've talked about the politicians, but the Kenyan voter who kept peace, who went to the ballot, well, there were court proceedings left, right, and center, but that Kenyan kept peace, and at the end of the day, they said, it's a done deal, turudi kazi. What do you talk about that Kenyan?
I think that Kenyan is very mature. He has come to age. He has learned that, yes, we all have preferences. And that Kenyan is able to say, you know what, I have done my duty, I have gone to the ballot, and I now leave the institutions to do their work. And if the institutions and the rest of the Kenyans have a different opinion from mine, then I respect that. And so that Kenya is very respectable. He respects his neighbor. He is also very forward-thinking, because he's looking at the future. And he seems to see that if he goes to the streets or if he decides to be overly get excited and not consider his other friend who may not be happy, that he's able to see that that affects his future. Because if we go back to what happened in 2007, they say in Swahili that when two bulls are fighting, the grass is the one that suffers. And so he's able to see that he's the one who suffers when he actually take the position of his leaders to heart, and they fight, and that fight ends up hurting him because it hurts his source of bread and his source of unga. And so that's a very mature Kenyan.
So where was this Kenyan missing the mark in the past then? Because you talked so good about that Kenyan who this time around matured, but what was happening to that Kenyan in the past?
I think that Kenyan had not seen what would be of his behavior in 2007. But he saw what is likely to happen if he actually decides to listen to what a politician tells him.
Yes.
And so this Kenyan is now a bit mature. He has experience from the past. And I think the past is a very good teacher because it teaches you about the future. And so that's what that Kenyan was lacking then and now has. He has the experience from the past. And so I hope we continue as Kenyans, continue remembering the past and improving on our behavior in the future, and that we get to a place whereby we even hug each other and celebrate whatever the outcome comes out. We're able to hug each other and say, you know what, he's also my president. Or, you know what, we still have to move on as Kenyans.
Just before we take a break, there is that bit of politics in Kenya being so tough and either do or die. Did you see that this time around? Because a majority of politicians who lost conceded and, peacefully said, I'm done with this.
I saw that, but then I think it's our, again, democracy, our electoral system maturing up. And because we were able to see, okay, I've cast my vote. There's a Form 34. It's already being delivered at Bomas. And it's the same Form 34 that my agent signed. And so what else do I have as a politician to do apart from concede defeat and look forward to the future? I think it's a system.
Yes.
When there is transparency, when we can see notable changes, positive changes in our system and in our voting process, then that's encouraging and that's allowing us to actually trust the system.
Yes.
And that's what is happening.
All right. Wakili, let's take a break. And when we come back, I still want us to talk about the numbers. The president talked about it. The president talked about the process and the numbers in his speech yesterday. He also talked about, he did not mention Deputy President William Ruto's name, who's now the president-elect. And then there's this issue of the opinion polls. All through, the deputy president, now the president-elect, was trailing. And after election, what you also. Let's take a break. And coming up, I have got Dr. Barak Muluka, who is a strategic communicator as well as advisor, coming on shortly. Let's take a break. We'll be right back.
There. Good boys gone bad.
Eric Omondi has evolved from being a comedian to now being the king clout chaser.
How does a gospel artist make money? Jaguar wept again.
Anaweza kuwa celeb as a corner follows, but it's a time for artists to make bank.
Yes. How is your relationship with Zari, considering that she dates young?
These are accessories.
They get out, slap the guy.
Yo, what's up? My name is Ted Josiah.
You sing about serious issues, it will not trend. If you sing about Adhiambo C.
No.
Bahati hata kuwa na machozi. Willy Paul ndio alikuwa anatoa machozi.
For your beat these boys with stones. Let's all be logic. Yesu washukangi chini analeta pesa.
Musicians are missing the point.
Do we sip water?
You are watching Pop Culture with Adhiambo with a Y.
He's lived a tragic life. All these years, he's always been on his own.
Let's pretend this never happened. But, even though I fixed her eyes, she can't handle brightness.
Master, I'm finally back to see you. See now, all these years without my blood, why hasn't his body even changed a bit?
I don't expect anything from you. I just want you to have a happy life.
And welcome back. Now we are now shifting gears, and as I promised, I have got Daktari Barak Muluka, strategic communicator and an advisor. He's not new to this. He's just said something that made me wondering. And Daktari, first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Victor. I'm happy to be here.
You are here in 1983 in this same studio.
Exactly, straight from the University of Nairobi.
What were you doing here?
I was a producer of programs here in this studio.
Ben,
and
your job is at stake. Ben, producer, your job is under threat.
And Radio Next Door, this is where we produced Tabule and Franco Luanzo Luambo Makiadi here in 1983, December. We were celebrating 20 years of independence as a country. That's almost 40 years ago today. It's 59 years.
You are here?
So 39 years ago I was here. And we were producing programs here. Yeah? And it was wonderful. Okay. But you people have now beautified the place. It looks really good.
.com. I don't know what kind of, whatever you are using, the equipment.
You see your equipment, it's all electronic. Ours was manual.
Exactly.
So to speak,
the tapes and the reels.
Where you have all these modern day electronic boards and background.
Yeah.
We had, the closest was the Telecine, the blue screen in the background, and which was very difficult to have. The rest were actually boards which were painted by artists. So congratulations.
We've grown.
Doing
because when you come back home and you see improvement, as a father, you're happy.
Well, I'm very happy. I think the joy of a parent is in looking at the offspring and seeing that they are going somewhere and they are doing better than you have done. Always we should aspire to see that subsequent generations do better than we have done. And that includes in the country, political things that we are talking about.
And that now drives me to the point of our discussion, Dr. because it's a very interesting point to be a Kenyan right now. I don't know what's your take on so far up to where we are today, the 6th day of September.
Yes, allow me also to acknowledge Ngugi,
right,
who began the show with you. It's a pleasure to be with you and to acknowledge the audience out there. I think the country is in a good place. Contrary to some of the fears and apprehensions that we tend to come across and to witness, our country is in a good place. In a very good place, I even dare say. In the year 2010, we promulgated a new constitution, and the new constitution came with many institutions, many pillars that would give us stability, so to speak. The independent bodies, the Supreme Court, the various provisions of the different articles of the Constitution, the various acts of Parliament that have been born out of that Constitution. And these past 12 years, those institutions have been undergoing testing for stability. And I think that they are proving to be quite stable, quite sound. I was saying off camera to Ngoge here that even the public itself is an institution. The people themselves are an institution. And moments and seasons such as we are going through do put all of us on the weighing scales. And I think we are being found to be completely stable. The rule of law is becoming entrenched. Our faith in ourselves is increasing. Even where the Supreme Court judges say that our levels of doubt and mistrust remain high, they give us the opportunity to test the pillars. The process that has just come to maturity through the Supreme Court was not just a trial of the election process. It was also a trial of the Supreme Court, a trial of the judiciary, its integrity, its stability. And of course, IEBC has undergone that test repeatedly. So finally, therefore, Victor, we must remind ourselves that the things we are doing should eventually be collectivized and be passed on to future generations.
Yes.
We are building a country that we are going to pass on to future generations. And if we are passing the test at each and every stage, as we seem to be doing, in spite of the fact that it hurts, in spite of the fact that there is pain, because those who lose hurt, they are human beings. They hurt. The harsh Jew told us that we Jews are also human beings. If you cut us, we bleed. If you beat us, we feel pain. If you poison us, we die. So they hurt. But that notwithstanding, in the sum total as a country, we are moving forward. And I seem, as I get older, to gain confidence that my grandchildren will inherit a better country than the country I was born in.
Dr. You've spoken so well about our country and the leaps that we've made as a nation. But internationally, where do you think now, after this election, the Supreme Court process, and now we have got president in waiting, of course, to be sworn in next week, on the face of the international community, where do you think Kenya stands right now?
The international community is advised to respect us. If it doesn't advise itself, we will advise it to respect us. The tempests of social and civic nature are everywhere in the world. There's no country that does not get itself subjected to shocks and tempests. And depending on the kinds of shock absorbers which are built in the law, in the social and political culture and behavior of that society, some will withstand, others will cave in to the pressures. You have seen that in the United Kingdom, for example, they are about to have a new Prime Minister, Liz Truss. She's expected to be inaugurated formally by the Queen. And you have seen that they have been going through turbulence from Theresa May to Boris Johnson,
who is now exiting.
And then they have Liz Truss, who is coming. And meanwhile, there have been demonstrations all over the United Kingdom. If we were to behave the way they do, we would have given travel advisories to African citizens in the United Kingdom, telling them don't go to this place, don't go to the other place, it is not safe for you. On the 6th of January 2020, we did not, 2021, we did not advise Kenyans in the United States to avoid going to Washington, D.C. And we know what happened there. We know that the United States is the foremost democracy in the world. But it has got its own shocks. It has got its own tempests. Every so often we hear of a gunman who has come around and done Haime. And therefore, we must say that mayhem is something that will be potentially there in every society. But we have passed that test in a country where we are going to an election and everybody is afraid. We are showing that we have an electoral system, we have got processes. Those who are unhappy will go to seek redress elsewhere, and as they seek that redress, they can maybe not be quite in agreement. But when we have on the average outcomes such as we have had, then I think the international community should start looking at us as a role model.
Because Daktari, as we speak, Wakili was also in the Supreme Court representing a client, and of course you would imagine the kind of brains that we have, Wakili, because I'm told that Kenya exports even some of the legal brains to represent other clients in different jurisdictions, right?
Yes, we've had quite a number of us, my colleagues actually go out and represent clients. We have members of the bar in Kenya who are members of the ICC prosecution team who actually represent there in Netherlands. They represent members from here. And so as a country we have such, we are so rich. We're so rich, and if we have gotten to this place where we are respecting the systems and where the systems are also working, because we could respect systems which are not working, but we can see them working, although not at 100%.
But there's some signs.
There are signs that if we give the systems time, and time is able to determine a lot of things, that these systems will be able to actually help us in dealing with a lot of maybe even mischief, or dealing with a lot of gaps that we have in our leadership and in our spaces. And so there's so much progress that we're making as a democracy, so much progress we're making as a country. And it's just a matter of time, because as my senior here has said, Dr. Daktari has said here, the Constitution is only 12 years old. What will be of our Constitution in the next 50 years? Because it has set up structures which we are still introducing. There was something that came up during the hearing. One of the parties had raised an issue to do with that the disabled were not allowed to vote, and the people in the hospitals are not allowed to vote. It is there in our Elections Act, only that it has not been implemented. And so what happens, what becomes of our democracy once we are able to implement some of these things? Because it's through time that then we are able to introduce some of these laws that allow maybe the sick in hospitals, allows an increase in people in the foreign countries to also participate in this process. And this year we had, I think we had quite a number of people, of Kenyans who live in Canada and in the UK, participate in the process of voting. So what becomes of our democracy in the next 50 years?
Yeah.
Because if we allow the systems, if we allow the constitution to take place and not be in a hurry to maybe even start changing it.
Absolutely.
If we allow it time, then we are going to reap from it.
That's right. What's your take?
I agree completely, particularly taking off where he has just left it off. The constitutional provisions may sometimes be uncomfortable. There may be some pain, and that pain and that discomfort is like the pain and discomfort of an injection that is going to treat you, that is going to cure you. And if we become short-termist and begin looking at the Constitution and the other legal instruments from the perspective that we want to enjoy.
Yeah, we want a quick fix.
Yeah, a quick fix. To feel nice today, and we start saying, let us remove this, let's bring in this one, relax it a little bit here.
Yeah.
Then we are loosening it. What we need to be doing is to be making it more compact, because we are a generation of builders. And those who build the house rarely live in it to enjoy the comforts of that house. They build it so that other people will live there and enjoy. And the people whom we are building this for are future generations. They must be able to look back 100, 200 years from now and say that the founders of our republic were noble people. They did what was good for us. And I agree also that our academic and intellectual power are assets, and they are assets that we are going to export and market and sell fund-wide if we behave properly at home.
Daktari, it's all over, and it's all systems go for Daktari Ruto. What do you think is now left for him?
For Dr. Ruto and the government that is now coming in, does Barack repeat what I've usually said to those who have been there? I've had the privilege of living in this country now for many years.
Right.
I was born in the colonial days, so I lived under the colonial dispensation. I lived under President Kenyatta, President Moi, President Kibaki, President Uhuru, and now there is President William Ruto coming in. The refrain has always been nation building, but we have never interrogated that notion of nation building to really understand what it is. We don't think about nation building beyond physical edifices, beyond infrastructure. For example, if you go outside this studio, next a few meters away, you have a super highway, which is a good thing, but that is not the nation. The nation are the people. When you bring together that national cohesiveness, that national integration, then you are building the nation. The incoming president is particularly challenged to build the nation. That feeling of oneness, the fellow feeling.
Like Ujamaa in Tanzania.
Yeah, to an extent, Ujamaa brings that, although it was more for a political, economic, ideological orientation, but it is within that direction.
Right.
What do I mean when I say that he is especially challenged. We have got one gentleman who has been elected by people from across the country, including from two communities that previously had a not very pleasant encounter in the 2007 season. But there's a sense in which those communities have owned him the way communities have never owned anyone before. I think the only other person who was owned that way was President Uhuru Kenyatta. But President Uhuru Kenyatta was owned with a William Ruto input.
Yes.
William Ruto has been owned without a Uhuru Kenyatta input, and in spite of a strong wave of opposition from the president himself and those around him, he is challenged to hold that unanimity together and to bring other Kenyan communities within that unanimity and to show that he can be gracious and charitable in victory, and that Kenyans discover some level of coherence and integration, which then will give birth to the economic progress that the country yearns for as a factor of social and political stability.
Wakili, Daktari says that there's a huge challenge ahead of Dr. William Ruto, and of course, the issue of cohesion. We are divided. I mean 47, 50 million people. You can imagine the kind of weight that is now over his shoulder to bring 7 million people and 6 million people who voted for other camps. I don't know what you think is going to be that magic rod that he's going to use to bring the country together.
First of all, we have, from the register this year, we had 22 million registered voters.
Yes.
And out of the 22 million, only 14 million showed up. And out of the 14, only 7 voted for him. So it basically means that he only got a third out of the 22 million. Only a third of the people of this republic believed in him. And it's a sad affair. And what then that means is he needs to find out of the 22 million and only 14 that showed up, out of those, the gap that did not even turn up to vote, why didn't they turn up to vote? Is it that they do not believe in this republic?
That's a good point.
Is it that they do not want to participate in anything in this country? Is it that they are discouraged by the leadership? So there's something he needs to find out from there. Then there's a 6.9 who may not have voted for him. He needs to make sure that he's able to reach out to them and he makes them feel that he's also their president. So the person in Moyale who is watching us and Lodwar, who feels like he's in a different country, needs to feel that in the regime of incoming president, that he's also a Kenyan, that he can enjoy the benefits of being a Kenyan. And this is security, maybe for him out there in the northern part of the country. Enjoy the availability of food because there's a hunger going on in that part of the country. So President Ruto has different mandates for the different people in this country because he's a leader for all. He needs to get to that place whereby he's able to hear out the needs of each and every Kenyan in every region in this country. He's able to fulfill their needs. So someone out there may be security and somebody else in this country may need education, free education. Somebody else may need free health care. So they need to feel that he's a president for all. And the road that he needs to use basically is the magic road he needs to get might be one that is that one of being able to reach out to all the leaders in this country because he cannot be able to do much. So he might need to sit down with his competitor, Honorable Raila Odinga and Mother Karua, they may need to sit down and talk and take over this country and work together as leaders.
Dr. Even as you respond to that question as well, I asked him, do you think it's now over for Honorable Raila Odinga? He's 77.
It's never over until it is over. And for living beings, it's over only when you go lateral and they send you 6 feet under. Then it is over. Therefore, it is not over.
Politically speaking,
I don't think so. His father passed on when he was 90-something, and he was a member of Parliament representing Bondo. He was still politically active in the country. If I were to advise him, however, I would request him to consider investing political prowess in younger generations. Yes, you have noted I'm particularly passionate about new generations.
Yes.
And where they are going to take the country, the institutions, the entities, the political party should enjoy fresh blood, new people coming in. But allow me to comment a little bit on the question you asked about the magic wand and national cohesion, how people go forward. I don't agree with my friend Eliud Ngugi here that the fact that William Ruto has arrived at the center of power, being voted for by just about 50% of the electorate, or those who turned out to vote, or those whose votes were said to have been valid, that it's a sad affair, or that it's only 1/3 or whatever. Far from it. First, these things are built in constitutional entities. If we were talking of a president who has arrived through the barrel of the gun, I would say it is a sad affair. If we talked about a push, a coup d'etat, or something like that, I would say it is a sad affair. But we are talking about a dispensation in which people have exercised their democratic right.
Yes.
The right to stay at home is democratic. It's unlike other places where it is criminalized. If you do not go to vote, you can actually be prosecuted. If you've gone there and voted in a certain way and not in another way, it is a democratic right. So I think this is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a sad thing. Now, going forward, I don't believe in tokenism, that now you must go and talk to Raila Odinga. You must now go and talk to Martha Karua. No, let them build their thing and let them be the government in waiting. Let them put this government on its toes. Let them wait for the opportunity. How then does William Ruto, that notwithstanding, take the country along?
Yes.
Kenyans must be reminded, and they must remind the incoming president that he has spent a number of months going around the country signing economic charters with the various regions. This is where I agree with Ngoge, that the needs of different places may not necessarily be mirror images of those of other places. And I think those charters reflect that. And so this is the time to call the bluff, that you signed these charters.
Now get down to work.
You told us you're going to do this for us. You're going to set aside so much money for this and that.
Yeah.
You are with Mr. Mudavadi, who is now virtually Prime Minister and in charge of finance, the Treasury. You are with Mr. Wetangula, who is in charge of the National Assembly. You have got the numbers, you can legislate. We want to see you implementing these charters. And if these charters, because the worst thing in any society is the feeling of injustice. And the feeling of injustice comes out of exclusion. And we have had successive regimes in this country that have told us things like, you did not vote for us, and therefore we are not going to prioritize you in any way. That is what kickstarts the feeling of injustice, the feeling of being left out,
and marginalization.
And the feeling that we are not part of it, and therefore you begin incubating future violent thoughts and violent activities. These charters must not be found out eventually to have been signed in vain as election campaign gimmicks. The new government must give us a blueprint that shows how it is going to implement these charters while meeting its other financial obligations.
Wakili, on 13th of this month, that is on Thursday, the first sitting of both houses will happen, and that is where they will be sworn in and the real battle begins. Electing speaker for both houses, we have got Kalonzo Musyoka, we have got Kenneth Marende, honorables, so to speak. We have got Senator Moses Wetangula. The real battle will begin at that particular point. What do you foresee on Thursday? We've seen dramas in both houses in the past.
What I expect on Thursday is, number one, the president-elect has not just been sitting down waiting for inauguration. He has actually been reaching out to the Azimio MPs.
Yes.
And I expect that having reached out and actually showed that he's a leader for all, and having been elected, I believe that on that day, our honorable members of parliament are likely to vote for somebody associated with the president-elect as a speaker of parliament, both houses. And so it's going to be quite interesting to see how then after that the decisions are going to be made in that house when it comes to debating different issues. Because if you have a speaker and you may not or might have the majority, the gap is very small for the majority. And what happens is that when it comes to a bill that is being introduced in that house, then I believe there will be very robust kind of debates coming out of that house this time round, due to the numbers, and I expect quality kind of laws to also come out at a very fast rate, because if you have the numbers and you're able to convince quite a majority, then it means that any legislation that needs to be put in place will be done in quite a fast way and in quality way, because also the kind of members of parliament that we have elected this time round, I believe, are also quality. We have new blood, we have new members of parliament who are very educated and are able to actually debate some of those issues. So it's going to be quite an interesting house to watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a point of correction. I said 13th. 13th will be the swearing in.
The swearing in.
Yes. It will be on Thursday. Thursday, the 8th of this month. So I beg pardon for that one. So, Daktari, a big battle. We have got Speaker Marende battling it out with Moses Wetangula. A big battle from two bulls from Western Kenya, so to speak.
I think Marende is coming on board as a spoiler. Kenneth,
but he was promised then.
Kenneth Otiato Marende is coming on board as a spoiler, and he will not be able to spoil, unfortunately. Marende was, until January this year, working in tandem with Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula. Then on the day of the earthquake, You remember the earthquake on the 23rd of January at Bomas. He decamped, and Mudavadi was the one who decamped actually, so to speak, because he left the One Kenya formation and found himself in the same corner with William Ruto. Apparently, dialogue had been ongoing behind the scenes, and it is possible that people like Marende may not have been fully appraised of what was happening. He went ballistic after that, verbally, so to speak, and accused Mudavadi of making wrong choices. That this man is always making the wrong choices. But this is the one time when it turns out that Mudavadi and Wetangula made the right choice. They looked in the crystal ball. They understood that they were beginning a little too late. Ruto had bolted and he was ahead, and there was every likelihood he was going to be the next president. As Eliud Ngugi correctly observes, Ruto has not been sleeping in the period between the 15th of last month and now. He has been busy massing up troops, mobilizing troops. And of course you understand that their thresholds, I think the voting in round 1 would require an outright winner who gets 2/3 of the votes. I don't think that will happen, and they're likely now to go to subsequent voting, where the top two, the person who gets more than 50% will become the speaker. There may be 2 candidates, or there may be more, but I still think it will be more than 1 round of voting, because if there are 2 and they vote round 1, you get 50% plus 1, I get 40-something%, then we are subjected to a repeat. In that repeat, even if you get the same and I get the same, that is a new round. The one with the higher number of votes becomes the speaker. And I think all indications are that it's going to be Moses Wetangula.
All right.
Marende comes on board as a spoiler.
I'm told that we don't need to spoil the show because we are already a minute past the hour, and that is where we need to stop it. And the way we say, mambo ni meme lakini masani machache in the streets. Thank you so much. That is Daktari Barak Muluka, strategic communications and advisor, as well as Eliud Ngugi, who is an advocate of the High Court. We've had, plenty to talk about. And conversation will still continue, and gentlemen, promise that you will come back to the show.
Indeed.
We still have got so much to cover.
Invited, I certainly intend to come. This is home.
This is home. Asante sana. All right, that is where we wrap it up on Good Morning Kenya. Thank you so much for being a part of the show, the entire crew and my colleagues, Jen, Doreen, and Regina. Let's meet tomorrow. Have a good morning. Bye-bye.
Gazeti la leo.
This is still disturbing.
Hivi ndo wenzako washapatana basi.
Huyo Levita yuko wapi?
Ngoja lifunguke. Kwani yuanza yeye kupenda? Atakuachaje siku zote hizo aje akurudie sasa? Yaani hapo hushiki mita.
Nimekupigania sana Leo. Tumepitia mambo mengi sana mimi na wewe. Babangu mimi nitamwambia nini?
Na usijaribu kunidanganya. Usijaribu kunidanganya kwa sababu faili niliziona.
How do you find your grandmother? How much do you love her? Come on, you have to trust me.
What's going on, Madam Warden? Please tell me, am I being set free now?
I want to talk to her and hear from her what happened on the day my father died.
But who really are you, Mother? The unfaithful woman who left me to run off with another man like what my dad had said?
Don't start jumping to conclusions.
And why not? Huh?
No, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back.
Songea tukupashe na zile ambavyo vitakupa tabasamu tosha.
Hana mapenzi wala mahaba, mtoto mbaya sana huyu.
What did you just say? Sio tamthilia tu.
And why you're saying that
Ni tamthilia tosha